With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
After 9 grueling rounds from the Red Bull Ring to Road America, the PRL's first seasons of GT3 action in 2023 have reached their final stop on the train. And it's a bullet train, because we're here in the forests of Japan, in Okayama. Michael Terrafino, Elliott White, and Blake Ziti all have big leads in their respective championships, but none of them have clinched their championships, and as so many drivers in motorsports history have learned the hard way, you're not actually the champion until that final checkered flag falls. It has been a grueling 10-week run. From F1 tracks to new circuits to street circuits of Long Beach, we've tested every single capability of these drivers here in the GT3 Fixed and GT3 Sprint Series. Now it's finally ready to bring it all to the end. Welcome to Round 10, the season finale of the PRL GT3 Fixed and GT3 Sprint Series here in 2023 Season 1. Live from the virtual Okayama International Circuit. Hello Mutta, hello Fada, here I am at Okayama. My name is Joey Tebben. With me in the booth and also on production duty, it's not Alan Sherman, it's Arjuna Kankapati. And we're ready to crown 3 champions tonight, Arjuna.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun night. You say we're getting ready to crown 3 champions all but crowned at the end of what's been an interesting season so far. Drivers getting ready for a bit of an off week, ready to see what iRacing is going to spring on them in terms of new build surprises, and then gear up to go for Season 2 in 2023.
And we'll take a look at those critical driver standings here in the GT3 Fixed Series. As I said, Michael Terrafino has a big lead, 29 points, but that is not mathematically unassailable. If you know the PRL point system, for a win, you get anywhere between 32 to 36 points, depending on the bonus points you receive. So theoretically, if Michael Pabiano wins this race and Michael Terrafino doesn't finish or finishes outside the top 30, this championship is not over, so Terrafino still needs to be on his P's and Q's and get to the end of the race here at Okayama to be the Fixed Series champion in 2023 Season 1. Qualifying is about to get underway here at Okayama, but before we can get into that, we have to thank all the people who make all of this possible here at the PRL on RaceSpot. Of course, first and foremost, it's the VCO, but first and foremost, it's Vulture Motorsports North, first and second, or South and North, rather, first and second in the team standings, ahead of Team Beef. Then it's We Race Esports and Team Beef actually fighting over third place, just 1 point separating the two of them. It's Lunatic Moonlight Speed Racing rounding out the top 5, then Forge Racing Team Gold, YS Motorsports, SGE Esports, the Ultimate Tongue Twister, Throttle Thursday, and 4X Motorsports rounding out the top 10. And I was so eager to get into the sponsors, but now it's finally time to give them their time in the sun. It's the VCO once again. You can never thank them enough. They make everything possible here on RaceSpotTV and help make every single Precision Racing League broadcast possible this season and every season. This coverage is also brought to you by Advanced Sim Racing. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminum profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision5 coupon code. This coverage is also brought to you by RaceBox Sim Racing. RaceBox offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts. From the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, their button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit RaceBoxSimRacing.com and also get a 5% discount, also using the Precision5 coupon code. Then from RaceBox, we slide over to RaceLab. It's RaceLab apps, and they help you to improve your driving skills. With modern overlays, race statistics, and native VR integration, you can get the best out of iRacing. Start using it now for free at racelab.app. This coverage is also brought to you by The Butt Kicker. Butt Kicker products provide an incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat with The Butt Kicker. And new for this season, I can only say that for one more week, it's Mecha Sim Hardware, and they're a small company from the Czech Republic, and their goal is to produce high-quality sim racing hardware. If you're looking for a high-end pedal set, handbrake, or sequential shifter, visit Mecha Sim Hardware's eShop right now to get you up to speed and check them out. And officially new for this season, it's Moradness. Moradness is a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsport and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Morad. For more information, visit moradness.com. And last but not least, it's NinjaTrader. Ready to compete against the financial markets? Of course you are. Sporting over 60,000 users across the globe, NinjaTrader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. NinjaTrader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulation. Visit ninjatrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance. And right on time for the final time this season in the GT3 Fix Series, it's qualifying time. It's go fast time, as Lee Diffie would say. In practice, things did look promising for Michael Pabiano. He's doing everything he needs to do. He was on top of the practice timesheets. Unfortunately for him, Michael Terrafino wasn't 30 points behind or 30 positions behind. He was 2 positions behind.
Yeah, no, he's keeping him close in a season where a pole has gone to Terrafino in 6 of 9 races. Pabiano's only grabbed 1 pole. The other 2 have gone the way of Matt Scherf in the Audi. First time coming onto the board in what's a qualifying session that's still got 6 minutes and 30 seconds left to go. Plenty of time to see who's going to shine. I did notice a handful of drivers, including the likes of Pabiano and Terrafino, invalidating laps on lap number 1 and having to go again on lap number 2.
Mistakes are always heavily punished here at Okayama, but Terrafino clearly not affected too bad. Instantly almost puts it on pole on his second lap, half a second over Dale Peterson in second at the moment. But here is Michael Pabiano, guy with all the pressure on his shoulders right now. All he can do is win. That's the only thing he can do, and he just needs to hope that the luck of racing and potentially some issues for Michael Terrafino can get him in the right position to win this championship. Through this tricky middle sector, it's almost like a street circuit with 90-degree corners, tight hairpins, and still little margin for error, even if there is a little bit of grass and gravel around the outside.
Yeah, it's one of those tracks where as we ride on board, you can see that there's not really, especially in this final sector, going to be passing opportunities once we get into the rhythm of the race. It's just such a flowing section that if you do end up battling, you lose so much time, which I know is the case for most battles, but it's so exaggerated here at this particular track. Pabiano will come to line. 29.083 the benchmark, and he's only going to get a 130 on the board on lap number 1.
Yeah, looked like he had a little bit of an oopsie coming out of that 90-degree corner, and that was actually an invalidated lap. So Michael Pabiano does not have a time on the board yet with dwindling time in this session. It did look like in the dying seconds there, he pulled off, and he's going to come back to pit lane to put a new set of tires on that car. But look at Greg Doucette for Throttle Thursday in the Lamborghini. Only a couple of thousands off of Michael Terrafino. Greg Doucette's finding some comfort here in the Japanese countryside.
And his teammate, man, Dinsmore is up in 4th position as well. So now down to 5th. There's more times come onto the board. So I think we're in for what might be a fun race at the front as Terrafino winds up for what's lap number 3 in his qualifying session. So he's still got a ways to go. Still waiting for, out of 32 drivers, 4, I think, who are out on track to go and get a lap in. Only the 77 of Mac File not out for qualifying. So I think we are going to hopefully get laps from everyone. That's not going to be a lap, unfortunately, from Lucio Vargas.
Just a little bit of rallycross out of the final corner. That's always so easy to do. That gravel is so attractive. But here comes the Audi of Matt Scherf, the most popular driver in the chat. His whole family's always with us every Tuesday night. See if he can advance from 11th place on the grid. He's had great speed this season, has a pole, got his first win. Unfortunately, he needs to do a little bit more work here on the second lap in this run. No improvement for Matt Scherf.
Yeah, and they're going to see a whole flood of time start to come on in now as well. Colin McKenzie does not improve on his previous lap that has him up in the 8th position. Now we'll also see the likes of Glenn Vanko coming to the line in the Porsche, as he will find about half a second of an improvement that will jump him forward up to 30th.
0.5 of a second and about 5 positions, but you eagle-eyed viewers, you know what just happened. Michael Pabiano in the silence, in the depths, Mr. Sneaky Part 5. Michael Pabiano has just stolen pole for Michael Terrafino on his 3rd lap, and he kills it. He brings it back to the pits. He thinks he's not going to improve on that lap time. Jay Steffi, one of the leading Fords in the field. This has been one of the most interesting storylines in the GT3 Fix series this season. Vulture Motorsports, they named their team that because they say, you know, we just like to ride around, pick up positions when we can. They decided to go for the Ford for fun this season. Still waiting on a few more drivers to come in here, but I do want to give a shout out once again to Matt Dinsmore for P7 in qualifying. Okayama has not been the kindest track to him in the past, but way to turn your luck around at Okayama to put it P7, but there goes Michael Terrafino. He's not going to let Michael Pabiano be too happy up at the front of the field. Terrafino steals it from his championship rival in the dying seconds.
Yep, but look at the margin. It's a 1/4 of a second between the two of them. It will add to Terrafino's pole position collection. 60 seconds left. Don't think there's anyone really in contention to try and improve here, and most drivers are already complete with their 4 laps, so sets itself up interestingly here. It's a short run down to turn number 1, and then most of the passing opportunities are going to be presented on that opening lap as we fight side by side.
Lots of very punctual drivers in the field tonight. We always see somebody who waits until the dying seconds of the session to go out and set their lap times, but no, everybody has been very punctual, just like the Japanese bullet train system. They're always on time, and we've just got 20 seconds to fill here now.
I mean, you mentioned the train system being on time, the level to which they look to get on time as well, right? It's in the rest of the world, being on time means within 10-15 minutes of the, schedule. In Japan, it's what, like 30 seconds, 2 minutes? It's crazy.
Yeah, 30 seconds is late. If your train is 30 seconds late, that's unacceptable, but we are over here in qualifying, and Michael Terrafino, he thinks Michael Pabiano's championship chances are over because he has shown up the Michael O who showed him up in qualifying, and Michael Terrafino will start on pole yet again this season. It has been an absolutely dominant run in qualifying this season for Terrafino. That's 7 poles in 10 races for the driver of the Team Beef BMW. And he starts alongside his championship rival, Michael Pabiano, who's definitely going to be hoping that Terrafino runs into some trouble on lap 1. Greg Doucette, his best qualifying of the season, I believe, in P3, alongside Sully Saad. Jay Steffi repping the Ford alongside Kevin Hansen. Then Matt Dinsmore, as I mentioned, strong qualifying for him at Okayama, alongside Angelo Veloz, who's won a race this season. Errol Urexoy was fast in practice. He starts alongside Colin McKenzie on row 5. Dale Peterson, 11, in that highlighter yellow Ferrari, starts alongside the most popular driver in the chat. The family's rooting him on. Matt Scherf starts 12th. Unlucky 13th went to Aiden Irvin alongside Dino Vella. Then Eric Kalaga in his Ford starts alongside his Southern teammate, Steven Martinez. Barry Cochran 17th alongside Alex Wright, making it row number 9. Last 2 drivers in the top 20, Frank Johnson and Nicholas Carangis. Roy Brown for Team Beef starts alongside the lead Chandler, Ryan Chandler, beating Regan Chandler, who starts alongside Trevor Houston, making one of his few starts this season. 25th went to Michael Kalaga alongside Rodrigo Morales. Then it's Buck Hamilton and Waldo Walden on row 14. Lucio Vargas had a little bit of rallycross, but still managed to out-qualify Ryan Luna to bring us down to 30th. Jeff Fleischman, Felix Feliz, Brian Hoskins, Glenn Vanko, Phil Amaro, and Jason Lotridge bring us down to 36th. But the hits keep on coming. There's a massive field here. Mark Feil, last but not least, the only driver to not set a qualifying lap time. In qualifying, he will start 37th, shotgun on the field. It's a short pace lap here at Okayama. He's got a few hairpins to navigate, and we're ready to get going for the season finale.
Yep, and now with 36 cars gridded up, one not taking to this short formation lap. Imagine the potential carnage. Drivers are going to be so nervous in a race that, Joey, these drivers can't drop in the championship. They can't afford whatever they're fighting for to slip up at this stage coming to the end.
Michael Terrafino, Michael Pabiano. Terrafino has one goal, and that's finish the race. If he does that, he's basically won the championship, but he's got many, many laps ahead. 35 minutes on the clock. We're green for the final round of the PRL GT3 Fix Series. Terrafino streaks away down the hill, and you saw it on the bottom of your screen. Greg Doucette getting as aggressive as we've ever seen him, stealing second from Pabiano at turn 1.
Switch from the BMW to the Lamborghini this season has clearly given him the impetus of the Bulls, and he bullied his way on forward. Aiden Irvin, one of the few cars sliding backwards in the field as the rest of them thunder their weight through the back straightaway and into the heavy braking zone at the hairpin. Expect a couple to go brave on the anchors and try some side-by-side, but no such worry, single file inside of the top 10.
Angelo Veloz letting his presence be known, taking a little bit of a peek to the inside. You see Rodrigo Morales, his teammate, in the background as well. But very, very clean quarters coming through the hairpin on lap 1. There's always a little bit of argy-bargy through there, but I think I see every single front fender in the field straight.
Except the fact that Aiden Irvin has taken the tow back to pit lane. Yes, everyone else is out on track and circulating as we wind our way through the final sector, and as expected, single file through the field with the 35 runners now split by 16 seconds. At a track like this, we are going to see pit stops at some point. It'll be curious to see how much the traffic spreads itself out, but across the line to complete lap number 1.
It was a great second half of that lap for Greg Doucette. He's brought the gap down. Terrafino is not just going to get to run away with this race. I think he thought the second he saw them two go side by side into turn 1, the second he thought Pabiano got a little bit out of shape, I think he thought he was done, but he's going to have some pressure from Greg Doucette. And right as I say that, Doucette makes a mistake coming out of turn 2 and loses all the ground he makes up. Here comes Pabiano.
Yeah, not sure how much they'll fight right now, knowing that if they do squabble, it will last all the way up to the hairpin and allow Terrafino the opportunity in his BMW to break himself clear of the two of them. Doucette on the outside, able to bank off the corner and get the momentum down the straightaway, but Pabiano still down to the inside as they break to the hairpin.
Doucette trying to make it work the long way around, but it's very, very difficult to make it the long way around unless it becomes the inside coming into the next 90-degree corner, and Greg Doucette has done the impossible, using the off-camberness of the hairpin to his advantage. He gets back ahead of Michael Pabiano, but even just fighting for 2 corners there, you can see the amount they've lost. They've lost about 2 seconds to Michael Terrafino.
Sometimes commentators do know what we're talking about. Here's a look at the replay of, what happened to Aiden Irvin? And he got on the grass by himself in that Lamborghini and speared off into the wall. And yeah, heavy, heavy damage, and no surprise that he needed to take a trip back to the pit lane.
You know, Arjuna, I didn't notice that. We could have been okay, but the Panopticon misses nothing.
I missed nothing.
Aiden Irvin, you are going to be our first driver to get named and shamed tonight, but I think he'll be back out there. He's got heavy damage, but as we know, in the PRL this season, if you finish 75% of the laps, you still get your points paid at the end of the race. And with only 36 cars in the field tonight, there's definitely opportunities for a few extra points to finish out the season for Aiden Irvin. The train has been a theme tonight. We've been talking a lot about trains, and that's very relevant because that's what basically the entire track looks like right now.
Yeah, no, it's a big old queue. Yes, Terrafino's been starting his breakaway at the front, but behind him it wraps all the way basically now into turn 3 as he's almost into the braking zone at the hairpin. It's a really undulating track, and compared to some of the other tracks that the drivers have been dealing with this week in the PRL, it's a track that they'll all know because it's one of those tracks that you all start with in rookie competition here on iRacing. We're watching the battle just inside of the top 20 with Frank Johnson trying to hold on to 19th spot, but did notice as well that Sully Saad has been passed by the Ford as it continues to charge its way up through the field and close itself on a podium.
Just like Henry Ford himself, Jay Steffi is not happy with trains. He's moving forward himself. It's a little bit of a drift on coming out of that second hairpin. that's one of the things about the Ford. It's definitely fast, but I always question, when you get behind the wheel of a Ford, is it going to be as planted as all of these other modern GT3 cars? That's always a question when you get behind the wheel of that. But we take a look in front of the wheel of Ryan Chandler's rig. He doesn't have the glaucoma background on in the background this week. That's very good.
Because we can approve of the poster that he's got there.
I'm no aficionado of Star Wars, so I couldn't tell you what that is, but I'm still focused on the little two sticks. Somebody told me what that was a couple of weeks ago. I think it's linking up his, it's like head tracking or something, I think.
Oh, I see what you're talking about. You know what? I've seen a lot of rigs in sim racing from broadcast perspective. I've never seen that.
I just remembered what it was. It's a phone mount. He doesn't have it up right now, but Ryan Chandler is such a little dork that sometimes he's got to put up his telemetry on his phone in front of his screen. He can never have enough data as a sim racing driver.
Well, they're fighting for second. Doucette and Pabiano now going back and forth once again. Gap in front of them balloons up to 2.6 seconds. Kevin Hansen in front of Arexoy as well. There is a little bit more passing than I expected, but as I expected, it is really costing those that choose to battle valuable chunks of time on track.
This is why I'm always excited to come to Okayama. It's not quite a track that lends itself to passing necessarily, but somehow we always manage to see good races here. No matter what we put on this track, be it GT3s, be it smaller open wheel cars, they always manage to put on some action. As we see the second Chandler. There's Regan Chandler. Again, we can see his background. I do not have the ability to maximize the books in the background. I'm not an FBI agent, but I imagine he's a well-read guy.
I'm trying to figure out if I have the ability to do that without breaking everything right now.
Let's do it. Why not? It's the last race of the season. If we break everything, it's fine.
No, this is where I get to plug the fact that we do have t-shirts that say we'll do it live, with a bit more colorful language included as well. If you go to our RaceSpotTV Armor shop, we do have a discount code as well that I've forgotten off the top of my head, but if you ask me for it, I'll go and find it.
You heard him. That's a promo and a half. Regan Chandler, though, he needs a little bit of help, because Trevor Houston, a driver who made his debut late this season, hasn't been with us for the entire 10-week run. He is having the most fun time of anybody here at Okayama. Oh dear. As I say that, Waldo Walden not having so much fun. Had a great time on Sunday night. Had a great cup race at Fontana to end his season. Unfortunately, his GT3 season isn't going to end quite so well.
Yeah, let's check it out on the replay machine. And where's Waldo? Well, losing the rear end as that car pirouettes, just working its way through the corner. That's really tricky as well because it cambers in a very different way to how some of the other corners do, and so if you're really trying to attack it, it's very easy to just make the smallest of mistakes. And speaking of mistakes, puffs of smoke and a Ferrari that's lost a few spots. I think Frank Johnson's lost some positions, and behind him a battle that he won't want to get involved in.
The field is hunting him down. Roy Brown coming up, Rodrigo Morales, Buck Hamilton. None of those names are drivers you want to have battling with you. They're all going to put up quite the fight. But we've got multiple trains for him now. You've got the Doucette train that goes back to, basically all the way back to where Frank Johnson is now. You got one 12-car train, you got another 12-car train. You can see all the marching ants down at the bottom of your screen. And Michael Terrafino in the 94, he's his own car here as we ride on board with him.
Yeah, I mean, he's in a world of his own right now. He just took that opportunity to break away. By no means is he quicker than the cars behind. Last time lost about a 10th and a half to Doucette, who's brought the gap down to about, 2 seconds as they work their way into this middle and final sectors of the lap. So if Pabiano's willing to work with Doucette, I do think there's the opportunity for the Lamborghinis behind to close, and they better start closing because the Ford of Jay Steffi continues to charge its way closer to them.
Could Jay Steffi be the underdog who wins this whole thing? Got quite the uphill battle, as he does battle uphill through the second hairpin. It still looks slightly out of shape. That Ford does not look comfortable through any of these hairpins. Every single time he's getting a little bit of oversteer, but somehow he's still pulling speed out of it. It's amazing.
Love the sound of it as well. In fact, the GT3 cars do have this nice variant in sound as Pabiano half shapes up for a move into turn 1. As Doucette with a bit of a slower lap that time by, actually lost about 0.4 of a second, as you can see on that bottom right corner of your screen. So 2.7-ish at the line. Fuel saving, something that I'm not sure how significant it is going to be here today, Joey, because yes, in a race with a pit stop, fuel saving is always going to be important. But at the same time, it is very difficult to save fuel, I think, at a track like this and still be relatively quick.
Even when you are in a train like this, it's not like we're at Long Beach. It's not like we're at a street circuit where you can really take a lot of time to lift and coast and slow yourself down into the braking zones. You've still got to be pushing at a solid percentage here, but I'm still going to think back to Long Beach either way. I'm gonna contradict myself because Michael Pabiano at Long Beach looked like he was out of contention for the victory. He was running third just like he is today, but he pulled the alternate pit strategy. He pulled down pit lane, he got out of traffic, he ran some clean lap times, the race leader got caught up, and Michael Pabiano ended up winning with the undercut. That's the only way you can do an undercut in the PRL, and if you're somebody like Dino Vella, you're probably going to be thinking about that while you're getting held up behind Dale Peterson. Yeah,
undercut is maybe more realistic for these drivers in the mid-pack, but anyone out front, I think with the fact that pit lane here is relatively short, I think you're going to get dropped back into traffic by the time we get a little bit further into the run. One driver already bailing off to pit lane, though. Eric Kulaga in the 66 thinks, you know what, maybe I need to get out of the choo-choo train, and, well, I am so happy to see the resurgence of 4 GTs. If I had known there were more of them this season, maybe I would have made a bigger effort to try and be here every single week.
Eric Kalaga's been the one all season, I believe. He's been the original taker as Michael Pabiano's gotten around Greg Doucette, and I think that was a mistake from Greg Doucette coming into the Atwood curve. Michael Pabiano's finally got ahead as there's more trouble for Ryan Luna. It's all kicking off.
Speaking of mistakes, that's through turn number 1. That Lamborghini, I'm sure, pirouetting itself around pretty easily. Gap between first and second now up to 3 seconds, and talking of mistakes, they're starting to rack themselves up. Felix Feliz in the Mercedes finds himself around, as now Colin McKenzie in the, well, I can only assume the Ken Block liveried tribute car that goes himself around.
Is there a leak somewhere on track? Is there an oil leak? What is going on? It's gotten slippery and slidey for everybody. Dino Vella is now going to join the fray as well as he offs it through the second 90-degree corner. Everybody has just decided, you know what? The first 12 minutes of this race were too calm. It's time to go crazy.
Yeah. All in harmony as well. It's fantastic when they do decide to do that, isn't that? I really do think now, though, for those at the front, they've got to wise up. See the margin behind them as they come down this front straightaway. Yes, there's a bit of a juke going on between Hansen and Urexo, but the margin behind is really just ballooned on up, and Hansen will shape up and defend from Urexo down through turn number 1, but opportunity for all of these drivers now to get a great solid result in the top 5 as Hansen spins his Audi around.
There's no other way to explain this. There's got to be something in the air. Something has gone tragically wrong as Kevin Hansen just barely recovers. He stays in the top 10, so if that's any solace for him, he doesn't lose the top 10, and it kicks off again. Through turn 1,
Dino
once
Vella
more.
again.
Yep. Never ends.
It's like Bernie Eccleston turned his sprinklers on. It's like he installed them here.
It's like we've got the airborne toxic event, and suddenly all the everybody's dying. Here's Frank Johnson. I don't know if this is the one that kicked it all off, or is this another mistake from Frank Johnson, but I wouldn't be surprised either way.
I think that was the first one, and I think from here they're just going to add on up. This is Ryan Luna into turn 1, so maybe actually this is after all of it, and oh yeah, indeed, he just loops it around by himself.
Some nice avoidance there from Brian Hoskins. That's some Brian Hoskins skill right there. Here's Roy Brown just having a little bit of an oopsie. That's probably the least catastrophic mistake that we've seen so far. Here's what happened to Waldo Walden. Let's show this again. Fleischmann barely misses it that time. It is the carousel of entertainment here at Okayama as there's Felix Feliz.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a handful of the replays that we could really keep working our way through, but there's plenty of action still going out on track as Dale Peterson peels his way off down to the pit lane. 20 minutes left in this race, so handful more coming on in, including Regan Chandler. So I think the mid-pack is just so congested, Joey, that to your point when you were saying some may elect to come in and try and get into some clean air, given that they are already so far back from the leaders, they have the opportunity to do so. 30 seconds or so seems to be your pit lane delta, so if Terrafino was to come in, he's basically going to leave himself directly in the choo-choo train that has formed up behind him.
You know, when you have a cold, when you're congested, blowing your nose is the best thing to do, and this is very similar. Getting out of the way, getting everything out of your system, that's the way to solve everything. And it has worked for Kalaga and for Peterson and for Chandler and for Vargas, because none of them have ended up in traffic at the back of the field. They're all on clean track.
Audi still looking like it's trying to find its way through as Steffi fends off Sully Saad. Erexo is really looking feisty as well. He's gained 3 positions. Movers and shakers haven't seen too much movement at the front. It's all that chaos that we've seen in the last 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes or so that has allowed those further behind to cycle their way on forward.
Errol Urexoy is definitely a legit mover, though. Qualified far lower than we'd expect him to. He's been a driver who has really found improvement this season. He's fought for race wins. He's been very, very fast. I thought he was going to be a championship contender this season. It didn't quite shake his way, but he's definitely ending it on a high. He's made 3 moves from 9th to 6th, and I don't think his progress is done. And the pit cycle's not done either as Steven Martinez brings it down in the Ferrari.
Yep. So I think more and more, one by one, they're peeling their way on in. Probably about 10 or 12 minutes away from seeing everyone being forced just by the amount of fuel they started this race off with. So getting into that window and final opportunity to save a little bit of fuel and try and make a little bit of time up on pit lane if you can. Pit lane entry here, you have seen it. You enter before the penultimate corner, Joey, on that right-hand side. So it is something you've got to keep in mind and kind of shape up and communicate to those around you.
It's quite a goofy pit lane entry here. I know I've personally come afoul of it many times. Errol Urexoy, we check back in with him once more. He's got a train ahead of him, but Sully Saad, another one of those drivers who he's been very, very competitive with this season. That'll be a good battle to watch, but up front it's an even better battle to watch as Pabiano is legitimately bringing this gap down. Now that he's been freed from the Greg Doucette stopper, he's not bringing it down in droves, but Pabiano is slightly faster than Terrafino.
Yep, no, he's doing a really good job right now in that Lamborghini to hunt him down as we ride on board with the 101. Into turn number 1, both cars looking pretty stable. Sully Saad, interestingly, will come on down to pit lane, so he triggers the first of our pit stops from inside of the top 10. Going to be interesting to see where he cycles out and hopefully avoids a bit of traffic.
Karangis is in as well. I'm doing the math in my head for Sully Saad. He was about 6 seconds behind the leaders. If I look back in the field, about 33, 36 seconds behind the leaders, it's Glenn Vanko and Brian Hoskins. This is going to be very, very close quarters for Sully Saad. He's going to come out behind Brian Hoskins. Is he far enough back, though, to not get held up? I think he might be lucky. He may be a little bit further back than or maybe a little bit closer than he wanted to. But if Hoskins and Vanko rather, come in soon, I think he'll be okay. I think he's got himself enough of a buffer.
I think he needs to hope that they come in on this lap, or he is going to latch onto their draft and really then start to close on them. I do wonder if there was maybe traffic for Terrafino, because he had one really bad lap that was about half a second off of what the pace that we kind of expect of him, as Michael Kalaga rejoins almost directly into Frank Johnson as Colin McKenzie continues to sit in the gravel.
Yeah, I think there may have been a little bit of an argument there between McKenzie and Kalaga there. I think there may have been a little bit of an oopsie into the hairpin. We've stayed out of trouble there all race long, but we can only do that for so long, as there's another argument coming into the braking zone between the 2 Mercedes of Morales and Buck Hamilton. They're not done. The Ferraris of Frank Johnson and Michael Kalaga aren't done battling either.
Nope, continue to fight as they now head on in, and I did wonder if Kalaga was going to work his way down onto the pit lane. Does indeed seem to be what he's doing. Not going to be the only one that does so on this lap. Will allow a little bit of separation in that gaggle as they work their way through these next laps. Here's a look at what happened. Just missing the braking zone, to be completely fair, is Colin McKenzie, and Michael Kalaga has nowhere to go.
Colin McKenzie has not been having the greatest of season finales. It's been his best season ever in the PRL. He's definitely hoping that that Season 2 starts soon, though, in 2023, and it can end a little bit better for him. Terrafino still circulating around. The pit window is very, very wide and very, very open here, but there's only so long Terrafino can wait.
Yep, no, I think we're not just at that point yet. We'll see exactly how much. Remember, we started with 36, one retiree early in the form of Aiden Irvin. Everyone else is still running, but realistically, I've only had about 10 or so cars that have worked their way down to pit lane, and Terrafino's going to continue to run, I think, basically until that car is dry. It's getting a little bit more physical, though, back here in this squabble for 12th as they dice their way through that double left-hander, but now stringing back out single file they go. I think it's Buck Hamilton who ultimately loses out a couple of spots there.
Buck Hamilton and Rodrigo Morales have been absolutely glued together here. You don't often see full contact racing at Okayama, but they have tried their best as there goes Rodrigo Morales pulling it off onto pit lane. I think he did call that out because Chandler, or rather Hamilton, did avoid him. He did check up a little bit, so I think he was aware. But it's always scary when somebody pulls off onto pit lane right ahead of you in this place. It's
one of those benefits, right, of being on the sim world where you can just key up and have instant access to everybody you're racing with. It is a pretty special thing at the end of the day, and something that we very much take for granted, I think, when it comes to how we communicate some things on track. When you could do it via, when the real world drivers have to do it via body language, we sometimes can do it by the push of a button and some words to the guy that we're racing with. So a very different situation. While Papagiano, by the way, has closed up the Terrafino, Doucette has kind of been stuck. He hasn't really been pressured by Steffi. It's a Rexoy that's really now fighting his way to try and close onto the back of that Ford.
Yeah, Doucette has absolutely fallen off since the start of this race. He showed so much promise, got so aggressive on lap 1, but he has just not had the race pace to show for it. It's going to be tough for him to hang on to the podium here, because Steffi and Urexoy, for as long as they don't battle, and they're not going to battle for long as there's a mistake out of the final corner for Steffi, Urexoy has to check up a little bit, so his run is minimized. But Aero Urexoy is putting the pressure on, and the pressure is already on. Jay Steffi knows it's a foregone conclusion.
Yeah. Don't think he really expected to be able to fight too much more. There, as Buck Hamilton swerves across the track. Frank Hamilton involved in that one as well. The replay machine will have to tell us more as Hamilton peels off to pit lane. Sully Saad, by the way, really now mixed up with traffic. This is exactly why you've got to be so careful with coming in early.
This has not worked out for Sully Saad. I can't say I'm surprised that Johnson and Hamilton came together. There's a lot of aggression in the middle of that pack. We'll have to wait for it. Oh, here it is. Here is the replay, and it's Johnson again through the middle of the hairpin. Hamilton tries to avoid, but there's only so much avoidance you can do. He's not going to come off with much damage, but oh dear. Almost came off with a lot more.
Doesn't shower himself in glory there, in my opinion, as Glenn Vanko is now got. Okayama is claiming GT3 after GT3 after GT3. Meanwhile, front of the field, gap down to 1 odd second. Neither car coming down to pit lane, but Papagiano on the hunt and now very much in the rear view mirrors.
He's found that pace he had in qualifying again. We can take a look at the track temps here. I think it's a reasonably hot day in Japan as far as I know. So tires definitely something you have to worry about at Okayama, but we've only been going around for 23 minutes. It has not been a long stint at all. Terrafino does seem to be struggling, though. He does not have the long-term pace at the moment.
No, really is starting to struggle in that BMW. Not sure if he's maybe just trying to hold on a little bit here. But into the pit stop cycle, they'll go now with effectively about half the field now cycled through the pit lane for pit stops varying from 8 to 10.5 seconds. So it's not the longest time on pit lane. The drivers do have a capacity, a maximum capacity on the tanks that's applied to induce a pit stop effectively by the series organizers, mimicking what the official iRacing series do, both here in the GT3 Fix series as well as in the GT3 Sprint series.
I almost wonder if Michael Terrafino is looking at his relative and maybe even looking at the broadcast and thinking, there's a lot of drivers who are making mistakes tonight. There's a lot of drivers who don't often make mistakes, who are just clipping the grass, going off in weird places. Maybe he's just backed it down a little bit. He's going at 90% instead of 100%, just to make sure he isn't one of those drivers who bins it into the wall.
I mean, I'm sure there's a little bit of that as well. Self-preservation, a track like this, the laps are pretty quick and fly by, and it's an interesting, mix of slow technical corners in the final sector versus some of the faster sweepers, as now Pabiano maybe a little bit deep. He checks up and loses about a tenth or two as they work through that opening sector. It is really one of those fun tracks, and I like, Joey, that a lot of drivers are introduced to road racing on iRacing at a track like this.
It's got everything. It's got fast corners, it's got slow corners, it's got heavy braking zones, it's got little taps of the brake. What more could you want? I am an Okayama simp. I love this place.
I don't know if I go that far, but I enjoy it. I'll say that.
It's hard to determine the best track on iRacing, but every single time we come back to Okayama, it rarely gets better than this place.
I mean, the best track in the world is the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We all know this, Joey.
That is true, but
And then second is the Nordschleife.
Well, debatable.
Third is Road Atlanta. Fourth is maybe Mount Panorama. I don't really know after that.
Arjuna's losing me. Arjuna's losing me.
I get less opinionated after that. Here we go. 10 minutes to go. Pit stops.
Both of the Michaelos interrupting our heated Road America discussion. Here comes Michael Terrafino. Here comes Michael Pabiano a little bit later on the brakes. Absolutely nothing separating these two. So was Terrafino saving fuel at the head of the field? Was Pabiano just expending a little bit more to break down that gap? It's a battle of the numbers now, as we seem to have reached the hard end of these fuel tanks. Doucette, Urexoy, Steffi, they're all in. And it's a battle of pit lane fuel as Terrafino misses his box.
That was Colin McKenzie around again, but Terrafino, is that going to be a crucial mistake as he rolls off alongside and inside? Pabiano gets the jump as they work their way off of pit lane. Terrafino, all he's got to do, though, realistically here is stay out of trouble and hold on to second. The championship is his in 9 minutes' time.
The championship is definitely his, but you never want to be the driver who makes that mistake coming into your box. You never want to lose a race win, even if it is going to be your 7th race win of the season. This could be a little bit of a trigger point for Michael Terrafino. When you make that one first mistake, it's very easy to make the next couple.
Absolutely. It's so easy to do that in pit lane as well, because you never really know what to expect when you're sliding into the box, and that's why I always used to be quite conservative with it. Some drivers are a little bit more aggressive, and it catches everyone out. It's not isolated to any one driver. These two drivers do have the benefit, though, of a big bubble back behind them, which will mean they're not really going to feel the pressure of anyone trying to push them, as Alex Wright and now Trevor Houston go around through turn number 2.
Houston, we have a problem.
That was right there, wasn't it?
Right there? Alex right there?
You saw what I did, too.
There we go. Let's see what happened again. That's Alex Wright dawdling in the middle of the track. I think that may have been after what happened. There he goes around to turn 2. A nice little 360. Did he make it a nice little 540, though, and back out on track right in front of Trevor Houston? Here comes Trevor. Oh! He Matt Dinsmored him.
Is that the new way that is that what we're calling it now?
I don't know if Matt's going to be happy about me bringing an incident back from 2 seasons ago, but I got no other reference point.
I mean, it's not the first time today that we've seen a potential lack of relative box usage, as Roy Brown becomes the final car to come down to pit lane with 7 minutes left on the clock. I'm just reflecting on the VCO Esports Racing World Cup that we had this past weekend, Joey, where we literally brought up an incident from last year's World Cup, so last January, where a driver was coming through the final corner at Bathurst, ready to win the event on the day, or that day's event for his team, turned off the traction control by accident apparently and looped the car. He was able to redeem himself because of the way the format went. His team still won, but we brought that clip up and kept remembering it, and poor guy, he got ripped into.
Well, I'm never going to be allowed to forget Road America Turn 5 because of what I did to Dave Peterson and the Ferraris a couple of seasons ago. There goes Brian Hoskins. Welcome to the party, Brian.
Yeah, just another one. We do call it the Mitchie Tauscher, by the way, the Tauscher, if you bottle it on the final corner now. That has officially been decided. Here's a look at what happened to Brian Hoskins, and just the balance of that BMW maybe not looking so good as they worked their way through the corner. Just got a little bit too hot in, I think, initially. Tried to overreact and compensate on the brakes, and unfortunately induced it to go around.
It's like senioritis. It's like when you're in your last year of high school, you can't do any work, you just get a little bit lazy in the final year because you know the next season of life is coming up next. Maybe we're starting to get season finale-itis here.
Everyone's ready for a bit of a break as well, I guess, right? Because 10 consecutive back-to-back weeks of racing, it can be a bit arduous to just go around all these different tracks. A lot of which some drivers may not like, Joey, because again, remember, we follow the official iRacing series schedules, so the best way to say it is if you don't like a track, tough.
I mean, that's the way to go. And next season, we may see some new tracks, of course. Jerez coming up in the next build, so I can guarantee you we'll see that in the schedule this next season. As Alex Wright gets it Alex wrong again, a little bit of a drift through the first hairpin.
That car looks broken.
Yeah, he's got suspension damage from the incident with Trevor Houston a little bit earlier, and he was one corner away from the pits and he couldn't quite make it.
I think he put himself out of his misery, to be fair there. Yeah, car looked about as toasted as he really wanted it to be. Front of the field, Fabiano starting to break away, Joey, just that little bit through some of these more technical sections. Penultimate corner sees Terrafino able to close in his BMW, but the Lamborghini is looking great here today, and Fabiano, after jumping Terrafino after that mistake in pit lane, has not looked back.
And don't avert your eyes. Make sure you get every last look of Michael Terrafino's car as you can right now, because this is the last time you will see Michael Terrafino in the GT3 Fix Series after winning last season's championship, after likely winning this season's championship in 4 minutes' time. He's finally been prodded. He's finally been pushed. He's moving up into the Sprint Series. He's moving up into the big leagues next season. We
can give him some difficult challenges, as now it's Rodrigo Morales that has to watch in his relative box to try and get his way across the track. Yeah, I think Michael Fabiano is going to be interesting to see how he gets on in that GT3 Sprint Series. I'm curious to see which division he goes in. Is he going to end up as an AM or as a pro? Because remember, we have that two-pronged stepping ladder as well, even within the Sprint Series, which will allow him to maybe get his feet underneath him, as that was Arexoy. Arexoy's gone around in 11th position. I was just about to point out, look at Miguel Fonseca that went from the AM Championship, winning that last season, to fighting in the pros this season.
Can never count out any driver's improvement. Errol Urexoy, I think we'll get a look at what happened to him. I imagine it's going to be something very, very similar to what we've seen in basically every other instant in this race. And it's been basically a mistake-free season for Errol Urexoy. He hasn't made many, so I haven't got to make any jokes about him. But here's what happened to Rodrigo Morales. Out of the final hairpin, loop-de-loop, Mercedes goes around. And he's lucky there weren't many cars behind him. Vargas and Brown get by, and then he finds a little bit of a gap to put himself in the wall again. And here's what happened to Errol Urexoy. Fortunately, he's finally put the wreck in Urexoy.
Oh! And, well, that, you could just see got way too overcommitted as they rose over the crest with the balance of the car. But, I mean, the benefit, I guess, of being in the Audi is he's not done any damage to his engine, technically, I guess, because that's not at the front of the car.
He's perfectly fine. That's the benefit of the Audi. We've seen that so many times in this series. I remember at Watkins Glen a couple of seasons ago, we had like 5 Audis go off in the bus stop and just absolutely ram the Armco at like 150, and they were fine. Didn't affect them at all.
Look at the steering looks almost perfect.
He made it better.
I mean, give a shout out to Audi Customer Racing for building a race car seemingly out of carbon fiber soaked Kevlar, I guess.
He does have Steven Martinez behind him, though, so his straight line speed, it may look perfect, but he's definitely struggling a little bit in a straight line versus that Ferrari. We're going to cross the line here to take 2 laps to go. It's going to be very, very close on time. With laps about 1 minute 30 long, it's going to be a race to the line and a race against the clock for Michael Fabiano here. It's going to be 2 laps to go at the line. 2 more laps for Fabiano as there goes Sully Saad.
And, well, he's got to be patient. Hold your brakes as much as possible. He's going to drop from what was at 4th position to 14th. The mistakes continue to pile on up. Matt Dinsmore had to take avoiding action, and he lost out, I think, a couple of spots as a result of that as well. But my, oh my, one more bit of drama as now Regan Chandler goes around. Still, I think, somehow leading the Battle of the Chandlers, though.
I don't think there's been a single driver in this field outside of the top 3 who hasn't made a mistake in this race. I think everybody else has managed to do it. We've got lap traffic to navigate through here. Colin McKenzie does manage to get out of the way at a very convenient place, but the next driver to go one lap down, that's Felix Feliz. He may be caught at a very inopportune moment for Michael Pabiano, but let's take a look at what happened to Sully Saad first and foremost. Under braking into the first hairpin. Welcome to the club, Sully.
Sully's sad now, unfortunately. Oh, there's Matt Dinsmore, the one that just has to really take the worst of the avoiding action given the speed at which he came across the incident, and Saad eventually able to work his way through. I don't think that was the only bit of drama. And then Kevin Hansen in his Audi, has he had something similar happen to... Oh, he was that red and white car that came and basically had to stop himself to avoid running into the car in front. It's a good job overall, but I think at the front of the field, we're ready to see the win.
Checkered flag is out. Michael Pabiano, it was a race against the clock, but he only had to do one more lap. Michael Pabiano beats his championship rival Michael Terrafino to the win, but unfortunately, he's won the battle, he's not won the war. Michael Terrafino comes home second at Okayama, but for the second season in a row, Michael Terrafino is your GT3 fixed champion in the PRL.
I mean, he survived the chaos. Yes, one slip up, but it just cost him a potential third win. Sorry, not third win of the season. It would have been his 7th win of the season, but 6 in 10 is still a pretty good record, and he bows out now as a 2-time champion in the series. Don't panic, Team Beef's coming for GT3 Sprint.
And Greg Doucette, we can't forget about him. He fell back a good 13 seconds at the end of it all. But we saw the most insane thing we've ever seen from Greg Doucette with that lap 1 dive, and I don't remember all the podiums of history, but I can't remember a time where we've seen Greg Doucette on the podium. That could be his first.
I mean, you're the PRL stats man, so I expect you to know all these things.
Hopefully we get Greg Doucette in here for an interview and we can ask him. We can see that beautiful plaid Lamborghini again, and I imagine that'll be a very happy boy in the number 85.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the fact as well is if any driver did assume they had to go one lap longer, Jerry, they may have had to fill up a little bit more. We saw a variance in pit stop times from 8 seconds to 10.5. I just wonder if some realized and knew we'd be done a bit sooner than others expected.
Last driver has crossed the line, I believe. Colin McKenzie has finished the race. And Michael Pabiano has finished the season. He gets a nice one-up on Michael Terrafino to end the season. He'll be coming back either in this series or in the Sprint series to continue that battle with Michael Terrafino, your champion. Greg Doucette on the podium. Jay Steffi brings the Ford home in 4th, and Eric Kalaga brings the other Ford home in 5th. It's a great day for the Ford Motor Company. Angelo Veloz was 6th. Dale Peterson survived to 7th. And Matt Scherf had a quiet race, but still finished in the top 10. Matt Dinsmore had to avoid Sully Saad late, fell to 9th, and Kevin Hansen rounds out the top 10. And Errol Urexoy fell outside of the top 10. He's going to be a championship competitor next season. He was ahead of Steven Martinez, who I believe has clinched 6th in the championship. So it was a pretty good season for him as well. Karanja, Sully Saad, Barry Cochran, Michael Kalaga, Regan Chandler, Lucio Vargas, Roy Brown, and Ryan Chandler bring us down to the end of the top 20. 21st went to Dino Vella, one of the many drivers to make mistakes, as was Frank Johnson. Jeff Fleischman, I don't think we saw him make any mistakes, but he ends 23rd ahead of Rodrigo Morales. Phil Amaro for Britannia was very, very quiet in 25th, and Brian Hoskins, Ryan Luna, and Felix Feliz round out the top 28. Colin McKenzie and Glenn Vanko went one lap down, as did Waldo Walden, as did Buck Hamilton, as did Trevor Houston, and poor old Aiden Irvin was the last driver to participate in this race out on lap 1. So poor old Aiden Irvin, he's going to look for next season as well. We do have our race winner here with us, Michael Pabiano. Mike, it's just short in the championship, but you did exactly what you needed to do to finish the season. You beat Terrafino in the final race.
Yeah, it's a little bit of consolation there. I did my best, but Michael... he had one great season. It was tough to beat him, but I hang in there, and I'll take the win in the last race.
So we know that Terrafino's moving up to the GT3 Sprint Series next season. What's the plan for you? Are you going to follow him, or are you going to stay in the fixed series and go for the championship? What does next season hold?
Yeah, I might have to take a break. You know, I got a lot of family stuff going on. My son's busy with his sports, so I'm still undecided. But more than likely, I can't make Tuesdays. So if anything, it might be a GT4 or a GR86. But yeah, I'd love to race the GT3. It's my favorite car, but unfortunately, you know, family comes first.
Family does come first indeed, but at the end of it all, it was a great season, multiple wins for you. What are your final thoughts?
Yeah, no, you know, I just want to thank the PRL for always putting up a great league. You know, great competitors that join. I want to thank everybody that raced in this league. You know, congratulations to Michael Terrafino for winning. And to you guys for such a great broadcast. It's always great to watch it after, and you know, and pick up a few things here and there based on your comments. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Congrats on the win to end the season, and we'll see you in whatever form next season.
Thanks, Joey. Appreciate it. Cheers.
Michael Paviano gets a win to end the season, but the driver who came up just short still dominantly won this championship. Michael Terrafino, 6 wins out of 10 races. It's the second championship in a row for you in GT3 Fixed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was a good day. I was kind of nervous because BMW did not like the later half of the run. It was very, very slidey.
So what are the emotions right now? Of course, you came up short in the final battle, but it didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. It's another championship. How are you feeling coming out of Okayama?
Well, pretty good. Excited for next season because Team Beef is moving over to GT4s, and I'm also going to do the Sprint, GT3 Sprint as well, so we'll see how that goes.
I can't ask you to predict things. We can't predict the future, but how do you think GT3 Sprint is going to go next season? Moving up into the bigger series, a lot of names up there. How do you think that's going to go?
Hopefully well. Finally be able to actually set the car up, because I know how to set them up, so with the fix, you just have to adapt to whatever it is, so be able to fix whatever elements I might have with the BMW and hopefully be somewhere up front.
Well, congrats on the championship, Mike. It was a dominant season, 6 wins out of 10. We'll see you next season.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Michael Terrafino, the Space Cat himself, your champion. And we got one more driver to talk to, and I believe it will be the lead Ford, Jay Steffi, representing the Ford GT to a 4th place finish tonight. Looked a little bit tough to drive out there. Was it from the same from your perspective?
No, it's just I'm a bad driver, so somebody qualified could do a really good job.
I mean, I disagree considering you brought it home 4th, but Okayama to finish off the season. How did you feel coming into tonight? How was tonight as a championship finale?
I was scared stiff. All these cars on Okayama, tight track, I thought it'd be really, really scary, but fortunately I was able to get up front and get away from all the carnage.
And what does next season hold for Jay Steffi land? Is it another season of Fixed in the Ford? Will it be the Sprint Series? Something else?
I will definitely be doing this Fixed Series again. We have a really strong team, and we're here to represent.
Well, congrats on the team's championship, by the way, for Vulture Motorsports as well, and we will see all of you guys next season.
Thank you very much.
Jay Steffi, the lead Ford, just off the podium. Hopefully we get to talk to Greg Doucette next season, because I think there's going to be good things in the books for Greg Doucette. That is the end of the GT3 Fix Series for 2023 Season 1, but don't fret, because we've got one more race coming up. It's the GT3 Sprint Series with 2 championship battles of their own. It's been an identical schedule because of the iRacing schedules. They're identical in Sprint and Fixed. But in the Drivers' Championship in Pro, in the GT3 Sprint Series, it looks a little bit like the PRL NASCAR Xfinity Series did a couple of weeks ago, as Elliott White is on top and defending his championship title in the final race. It's GT3 Sprint time at Okayama, Pro-Am splits, a longer race, and always the possibility for a little bit of extra chaos and drama, Arjuna.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, don't forget, open setups. Terrafino was just mentioning it, right? He knows how to set these cars up, and now he's not going to be dependent on whatever the iRacing overlords have decided is in use for that particular event. So looking forward to seeing his challenge next year in that series. Looking forward to seeing him in GT4s as well. But yeah, same schedule for these drivers, and you know, I was going to comment on it at the end of the Fix Championship as well, but it's such an interesting schedule that these drivers have been on as well, right? You said bunch of F1 tracks, the wider, open, sweeping circuits, but then you go to the likes of Okayama, throw Long Beach into the mix as well, Magny Core. Yes, it's an F1 track, but it's not a traditional F1 track by any means. So I think this is an interesting schedule, especially in these GT3 cars, which, yes, are sports cars, but are also aerodynamic beasts.
Okayama famous as an F1 track for being the only Grand Prix with the same name as an F1 team. The Pacific Grand Prix, where Pacific Grand Prix raced. That's one of the many Okayama factoids I think we're going to break out over the second half of the night here. But the biggest factoid of all, it's Elliott White at the head of the championship. He's not been the fastest driver in the field this season. He has 2 wins, but critically, he's been the most consistent. He's got the wins when he could, he's got the results when he couldn't win, and that's why he's got an 18-point championship lead over Sean Dickinson, who has shown some absolutely insane pace at times this season. Dominant at Silverstone, dominant at Manicourt, almost won last week at Road America in a photo finish. He's still 18 points short. Raymond Yip is also in mathematical contention, rather incredible. You want to talk about a consistent driver, that's Raymond Yip. And Martin Crisp is also in mathematical contention if everything goes terrible for both Dickinson and Elliott White. Karl Modoff was one of the most exciting drivers to return to the PRL here. The winningest PRL GT3 driver of all time. Hasn't quite gone his way. He's had some terrible luck. Got disconnected from the lead at Long Beach on the final lap. That was absolutely terrible. Dan Krasowski's been fast. Ryan Pucktel's been fast. Connor Wagner's been fast. And Josh Spears and Noah Anderson have been fast and consistent as well, bringing us down to the end of the top 10 in Pro. But the AM standings, they're slightly less close to the top because Blake Zede has a 28-point championship lead over Kwok Nin. Not unassailable, Arjuna, but also remember with the points system in the AM category this season, you get the positions based on the position you finish. If you win in AM, you don't get points for winning. And the most points any driver has scored in AM this season is 22, and Kwok Nin has to score 28.
Yes. No, I love the change in point system, by the way, since we did commentate on the previous season of the championships, one of the previous seasons together. I think it's a really interesting change for the AMs. It forces them to fight. I did give a bit of a chuckle, by the way, because you are really trying to set up that these championship fights are open when the reality, I think, is maybe not as close as you're trying to make it seem.
It's always mathematically possible. Crazy things always happen in racing. Unfortunately for Turner Schroll, Mendonca, downtown Gary Brown, former Supreme Court Justice William Brennan, Matt Hilton, Nathan Deering, Christopher Rines, and Jeff Carollo, they're out of luck, but they're still going to fight over those final couple of positions in AM, and we may see a driver like Jerome Bertiome or somebody else advance into the top 10 at the end of it all. And then in the team standings, I don't think that's resolved yet either. SimCity Racing with Crisp and Dickinson. They have been the class of the field team-wise, but Delta Sport with Modoff, with Connor Wagner, it's not over for them either. If it's a bad day for SimCity and a good day for Delta Sport, we could see some little shiftiness up there. Precision Racing Esports, unfortunately, the fall of Dan Krasowski has kind of ended their championship fight in teams, as has it for Blue Chip Racing. Upfront Motorsports is the last team in the top 5. Then it's the secondary Precision Racing Esports squad. Forge Racing, on their first attempt in this series, they've had some ups and downs. Rob DeLoach got a podium, but there's been some bad luck for some other drivers. Race Factory Blue is 8th. Your AM champion team, Lurt Long Island Racing Team, is 9th. And Speedworks Racing Team, Esport Pro, we just call them SRT. That rounds out the top 10.
Yeah, good point, by the way, that I do need to make on this team championship is Precision Racing Esports have a 30-point penalty applied to them, right? Which is therefore seeing them drop back, I guess, effectively to where they would have only been 18 points back from SimCity Racing, aka in second spot. I don't know how to look at it. With the Precision Racing 111 and 112, they've got 30 and 35 points. They have been the most penalized teams across the season. Does that mean the Precision Racing Esports drivers are getting in the most incidents, or is it just that the race control guys are being the most strict on their own drivers? I'll leave that up to you.
I'll say both. You can never miss anything. The eyes of Arnaud Genet, lead road steward in the PRL, they miss nothing.
I mean, I do enjoy as well the fact that you get these little storylines, right? The fact that penalties make such a difference in these championships is quite significant.
Here we are. Okayama once more. It's 45 minutes in this series, so 10 extra minutes of racing and championships on the line. So if you're Elliott White and Sean Dickinson right now, you saw the way that sprint race, or that fixed race went, rather. You saw that Terrafino did everything he needed to do. He had no trouble. He made no mistakes. He didn't wreck the car, and he won the championship for it. So is Elliott White going to go conservative just like Terrafino did? Is Dickinson going to get aggressive and try and force White into a mistake? They've got a whole race distance of experience to base their new experience on.
Yeah, I'm going to be quite curious how the balance of the GT3 machines changes now relative to the fixed series, now that we've got the open setups on as well. How many of the drivers were able to find those little adjustments that will enable them to find a bit more performance from a car that maybe was struggling. For example, Terrafino in the BMW. Could he have found a change in the setup that allowed him to be a little bit more aggressive at the end of the stints?
Qualifying should be underway here in a matter of moments, but track surface is getting hotter, I think, as well. And Okayama is it's a place in the burning Japanese sun where those tires get very heated up. You don't have much time to cool them down because there are straights, but some of them aren't very straight. We saw the effects of that in the previous race with just some constant spins. It's only 80 degrees Fahrenheit on track. It doesn't look especially hot, but everything in that last race suggests that it gets pretty hot.
No, I think it's also the fact that there's no asphalt runoff really here, right? You've got the grass on either side, and I think a lot of what was catching people out was the fact that they were just committing so much speed because they were trying not to brake on the grass potentially. And so in a lot of these GT3 cars, if you carry too much speed, it is very easy to lose the rear end to step around, for it to step around on you. We also saw, let's not forget, Joey, that in qualifying, even a handful of our main championship protagonists found it very difficult to get times on the board without getting laps invalidated. So as the drivers get their first attempts onto the qualifying clock, going to be curious to see if they can hold, who can hold their nerves in this qualifying session.
Times are flowing in. Connor Wagner puts it to pole for just a millisecond, but championship leader Elliott White steals it from him by only a couple thousandths of a second in this Audi. First driver into the 127s. The only thing he can do as a championship leader is survive to the end of this race, maybe show up his championship rivals as well as he can. He's done a great job early on to put it on pole, and as I say that, Karl Modoff dumps him off.
Yeah, for Karl Modoff, he is searching for what would be his second pole position. Pole position's been spread across a handful of drivers. Nathan Bartley got one, of course, but so have the likes of Diego Morales. 3 pole positions this season for Daniel Krasowski, along with, of course, 1 for Modoff, 2 for Dickinson, 1 for White. A lot more close this championship than the fixed series was, at least in terms of the numbers, with Terrafino getting some handful of poles, but 6 victories in 10 races as well.
I really expected this to be a lot closer when we got to the start of the season, because there are a good 10 drivers in this GT3 sprint field who could win a championship. This is the best GT3 sprint field the PRL has ever seen. But of course, over the course of a season, bad luck strikes everybody, and Elliott White has had potentially the best luck of anybody. He's only had 1 DNF and 1 bad race. Everybody else has run into even more trouble. Sean Dickinson has been about equal, but Karl Modoff, as I mentioned, had that disconnection from the lead at Long Beach, no fault of his own. Dan Krasowski has missed 2 races, so one of his drop weeks is literally a 0. Connor Wagner has had trouble as well. He got a terrible penalty at Manicourt, where on the final lap of the race, he cut the chicane, and he couldn't serve the slowdown in time because the line is right there, so he got kicked out of the top 10.
A lot of drivers bailing from qualifying runs after completing 2 laps, so maybe the tire's not really up for another one. You saw Nick McLaughlin not really too happy with his own lap time there. He is really mired down in 21st position, 1.1 off the pole right now. We're watching as Connor Wagner in that number 51 machine enters into that final couple of hairpins that lead you to the final 2 corners on the track. Porsche looking pretty okay right now. Don't really see too many of them, I think it's fair to say, though, in the fixed series earlier tonight.
It's somewhat of a surprise to still see Connor Wagner in this Porsche. He's clearly comfortable with it, but it hasn't won him a race this season. The Audi for his teammate Karl Modoff would have won multiple races, so The two Delta Sport teammates with two completely different marks, two completely different strategies. This lap for Connor Wagner not going to count. He's about 5 seconds off the pace. Back on the clock for one more lap here. Ted Lowendick has had quite a bit of bad luck this season in his first season as an independent driver for Team Tedline. It's Ted cubed, Ted squared there. I'm no mathematician. I can't do biology like Ted can, but there's a lot of Teds.
It's Ted-To Wolfington. That's his new name, by the way, that I have officially given him.
He's oversaturated.
That too, as well. But yes, Team Tedline, I mean, taking on team ownership responsibility and really branching out, I think it's fair to say as well. And some of the Ivor competitions where we see Ted compete as well. He's even partnered up with Impulse Racing in, I think, the touring car category, which is it's Impulse by Tedline. Very basic livery. It's got this beautiful teal RaceSpot logo on the side of it. So a shout out to Ted for making sure that RaceSpot gets a teal representation. I'm trying to now argue that we need to make teal one of our official colors.
I'm all for it. I'm a big teal fan. And also we saw the tweet earlier today that RaceSpot has put out an open call for producers, for broadcasters. I got a message earlier today from a certain Nick McLaughlin from deeper in the field. He said, you know what, my sim PC's pretty good. I might have to have an excuse to build a new PC to do some production duty, as Kwok-Nin has become the leaning tower.
Yeah, no puppies today, unfortunately. We did see him yesterday in the GR86 GT4 broadcast, and he showed up with puppies when he came to talk to us. Puppies! I need more puppies in my life.
I'm going to get a crook in my neck. I'm going to crane my neck over every time we see Kwok-Nin. I'm doing this broadcast horizontally. Gonzalo Cortez, very, very familiar colors. You can never miss that bright red Audi. It's another driver who always has great speed in qualifying. He's put it up to P3. This looks like an outlap, though. He's very slow out there.
Joey, you need a...
Or an in-lap.
Yeah, well, that too. You need to make sure you're checking your Discord, because I am sending you a picture of said puppies from yesterday, because I still cannot get over how adorable they were. Winding their way, though, through the final sector, Karl Modoff. Opportunity to try and find some improvement. Only has a 600th of a second margin behind him, but I think he's comfortable. Ovando will jump to third, but Modoff practices her pit entry.
I hope he gets better than that in the next minute. Here comes Connor Wagner, his teammate Martin Crisp up to third. Great lap from him. But can Connor Wagner end his teammates' party at the top of the field? It was a 1:28.0, his best lap. What is the second lap, or the next lap rather, have in the bag for Connor Wagner? It's a 1:27.875. Oh, it is quite enough. It is better than Karl Modoff's lap time. My time was slightly inaccurate. Connor Wagner pulls 0.003 of a second out to go to pole.
My word, 0.003 around Okayama here at this track. Such a technical track as well to get the flow of. I mean, we're in for a treat at the front if they're going to be that closely matched in race pace as well. Remember, Modoff has one victory, Wagner does not. They're looking to sign off this season on top.
A couple seasons ago, Connor Wagner had such a dominant run in the PRL Formula 3 series in the pro class that he missed the final round, and he still won the championship. That's how dominant he was. The form hasn't quite followed into the GT3 series, unfortunately. That's not all his fault. He's not made all the races. But he was on pole at Laguna Seca last season, and this season he's finally done it again. He's put it on pole at Okayama. He's going to search for his first win in the closed-wheeled side of the PRL, at least. And he starts alongside his teammate Karl Modoff. It's Delta Sport in the front row with two different German marks, and somehow with two different cars, they've managed to set each other up 0.003 of a second separated in qualifying. Then it's Elliott White, your championship leader, starting third, ahead of Martin Crisp, not Sean Dickinson. Boris Ovando, another one of those drivers who should have fought for this championship, just ran into some bad luck. He starts fifth alongside Mr. Gonzalo Cortez, who wants a good result to end the season. Sean Dickinson needs to beat Elliott White by many, many positions to win this championship. He starts alongside Raymond Yip. Diego Morales starts ninth alongside former F3 AM champion Ryan Pucktel. Miguel Angel Fonseca, defending GT3 AM champion, moving up into the Pro Series this season, starts 11th. He starts alongside J.R. Williams. Thomas Dunn, unlucky 13th, and Blake Ziti, our AM champion-elect, starts 14th. Ted Lowendick 15th alongside Nick Larson. Then it's Nathan Bartley 17th alongside the Bone Man, Ethan Osowski. 19th went to Noah Anderson. Chase Brown starts alongside him. David Mendonca could steal second in the AM Championship from Kwok Nin if he's lucky. He starts alongside Andres Espinoza. And then it's potential future PRL producer Nick McLaughlin starting alongside Jeff Carollo. 25th place went to Brett Thurman. Josh Spears 26th. And the last driver to qualify is the driver who needs to score more points than any AM ever has to win the AM Championship. Kwok Nin will start shotgun on the field ahead of the two SRT eSport drivers, Matt Hilton and David Morse, who did not set qualifying lap times. I'm not going to give up the Kwok Nin train. I'm not going to give up until that checkered flag flies. He's got an uphill battle ahead of him, though.
He does, but you can try hyping it up as much as you want. I'm not going to help you there.
Well, I checked the information about Okayama. I did my research before this broadcast, and one of the sister cities of Okayama, Japan, is a city called Ninh Binh in Vietnam. That doesn't bode well for Kwok Nin, because that means he's going to bin, but maybe it's a reversal of fortune. It could happen. But here we go, off on our short pace lap once more. It's Delta Sport on the front row, as I said, with Connor Wagner and Karl Modolf. Connor Wagner desperately searching for his first win on the GT3 side in the PRL. Karl Modolf trying to show everybody that he's still the big dog in the GT3s in the PRL. More wins than anybody by a third. He's got 24 GT3 wins in the PRL. The next driver doesn't even get into the 20s. But he's got a ride behind his teammate here. Through the final corner, Connor Wagner waits for the very, very early green flag. And for the final time this season, it's GT3 time on Tuesday night. Out of Atwood Curve on lap 1. I was about to say there was no trouble throughout the field, but there is trouble in the background, and that's our AM Championship leader, Blake Ziti, in the wall.
Well, there had to be drama, and there may just be some. Into the hairpin, they go single file at the front, but almost door-to-door behind them, all funneling their way on through. Ziti, the only victim, though. The rest of them safely through.
Other than that, there's always one, but still a remarkably clean lap 1. You saw Elliott White getting aggressive coming down through the S's, backed out of it though, did not want to wreck himself or Martin Crisp. Elliott White lives to fight another day, sits 4th though. Championship rival Sean Dickinson currently 7th. No real changes in the starting order at the head of the field, but there are some clouds flying up at the hairpins, and I think the Bone Man Ethan Osowski may have been one of the culprits.
Yep, no, indeed does go around front of the field, though, at the front. No changes in the top 2, but 3rd through 6th, all swapping around on those rows with, I think, the inside maybe getting a slightly better jump on that run down into turn number 1. As they filtered their way on through, settled down after that, these drivers all knowing that once again, Joey, pit stops are going to be important.
You're already thinking into the future at this point when you're a driver or when you're a commentator, because you saw how wide that pit window was in the fixed series. With an even longer race here, with 40 minutes on the clock, that pit window gets even longer. You've got less traffic on track. It is a smaller field. You're thinking strategy already right now, and if you're Karl Modolf, you're probably thinking about what you can do about your teammate. Is a little bit further back, Ethan Osowski's gotten into even more trouble. Unfortunately, this time he's involved Brett Thurman with him.
Yeah, it doesn't get much better, unfortunately. Take a look at the replay and start back at the Blake Ziti incident out of turn number 3. Just working with cold tires and a bit of contact as well with that Lamborghini. That spits him off into the wall. Does a good job, to be fair, to not bounce back onto track.
So Blake Ziti is still in the pits. He's going to get back out on track, I can guarantee. But here's what happened to Ethan Osowski. I think he may have had a little bit of help there. There's a little bit of smoke kicked up already. And then behind, that is, I believe that's Noah Anderson onto the scene. No, that was one of the SRT drivers who gave Ethan Osowski a little bit of a tap, and I think he may have gone around again here at Atwood.
Yeah, so this is what we just saw. So he just try and come and pinch down, doesn't he, on Brett Thurman, unfortunately, and, well, 2 into 1 does not go. Unfortunately,
it does not. Somebody off into the background there. I think that was Gonzalo Cortez having a little bit of fun with track limits, kicking up a little bit of gravel. No harm, no foul there. Loses touch with Elliott White for a moment. Now Boris Ovando, if he can get a good exit at Atwood, might have a shot into the hairpin, but I think he's going to be a little bit too far back. Yeah, I think they're all kind of just stagnant for the time being. There's been no breakaway at this point in the race, especially compared to what we saw earlier with the GT3 fixed drivers. And I think they all recognize right now what's going on. Also, just note how many more Audis we have in this field. Porsche still running strong at the front. You were questioning maybe the choice from Conor Wagner, but often, you know, unless you're at the very top of the top, unless you're like a Team Redline or something, or maybe Team Tedline potentially in the future, you don't necessarily always need the fastest car. You need the car that you're the most comfortable in and can extract the most speed from. It's a very, very close train here. We haven't seen much separation. Again, that is because it's a slightly smaller field than we had in the fixed series, but it's still only 20 seconds back to Brett Thurman, who had a little bit of an incident of his own. Again, it's the train theme again. We've got a great train forming here as the two Delta Sport drivers in tandem kind of pull away. Martin Crisp, who had some great qualifying pace, does he have the great race pace, or is he helping his teammate out a little bit potentially? Have to wait and see. Did see SimCity Racing in the YouTube chat jumping in to see how this race was going to play itself out. Martin Crisp in that 957. Starting to maybe look like he'll come under fire from the trio of Audis behind, but it's really Cortez that's the one ducking and diving potentially, and just maybe more realizing that Ovando in that bright yellow machine that you're definitely not going to miss is closing into each of these braking zones and may get ready to throw a lunge that Cortez may not be able to defend. It was a little bit defensive himself, does Cortez, but I don't think that was a full-hearted defense. I think that was just letting Boris Ovando, letting Elliott White both know, I'm still here. If I want to go for a move, I can in the future. But Gonzalo Cortez slots back in line, and he's going to be riding there for quite a little while, I can only imagine. The AM battle is going to be very, very interesting in this race. While everybody up in the pro class fights over their 4th and 5th, it's a short AM field tonight, unfortunately. There's only 6 drivers who have joined us tonight in the AM class, but with Blake Ziti's erasure, suddenly things have become very, very interesting because David Mendonca leads by a couple positions over Jeff Carollo, a couple positions ahead of Kwok Nin, who we know is going to have some pace, and we know is going to factor in this win even after a bad qualifying. Yeah, we've got the AMs basically at the back, slightly smaller AM field than maybe we'd like, but of course end of the season drivers tail off, and you know, maybe there's less for them to fight for. Looking forward to seeing a refreshed rookie class for next season in some ways for, I guess, the AM Championship. But you'll notice that these cars still in basically that leading train. We haven't really had the type of separation that would see them break off necessarily while the leaders dive their way through the hairpin. Behind them, still cars filtering their way on through. Speaking of hairpin, Elliott White's on through initially on Crisp, who fights on back down the hill and now has the inside, costing each other time. Deja vu to what we saw in the fixed series earlier tonight. Gonzalo Cortez has the chance to make it 3 wide if he wants to. Thinks far better of it, though. Martin Crisp on the inside is going to hang on to that position, but the train never ends. Like the Roches said, once you step on, you might never get off. Now Gonzalo Cortez ends up getting derailed on the outside as he continues to try and fight back on Elliott White, and in the process, he's letting Boris Ovando in. Gap has grown from 2nd to 3rd, up above 2 and a bit odd seconds, 2.5 seconds almost as they'll come across the line. And so Martin Crisp has held position, but has lost draft to those in front. Ovando's going to shape up to the inside. Cortez had been worried about it. Ovando slows enough to allow Cortez to hold position. Now Dickinson tries to take advantage in the SimCity Lamborghini to try and jump. It's a little bit closer to his teammate. I'm getting such deep ketchup and mustard vibes right now watching Cortez and Ovando fighting. Boris has switched colors this season. He started the season in a bright baby blue car. It was almost a race spot teal car, but he had some bad luck. I think he wrecked out of the lead in the opening round of the Red Bull Ring, but he switched into this beautiful mustard yellow entry. He won at Long Beach. He took advantage of the bad luck of Karl Modoff. Maybe mustard yellow is the way to go.
Maybe. I mean, it's definitely distinctive. We can identify it. So there's that, I guess. Anything
that isn't red and black, I'm happy because they all blend together.
Yeah, or in sim racing, blue and white, because that is also a very common color combination. I will send you a clip, Joey, where there was a race with 6 cars, Apex Racing Team versus BS competition. They're all blue and white, and if you watch from certain angles, it is literally impossible to figure out who is who.
I always endorse this because I did this myself when I was in the PRL, when I raced the Ferrari Challenge. I just made my car highlighter yellow so I could be seen anywhere on the broadcast. Unfortunately at Okayama, that usually ended up with me in the wall. But our 2 Delta Sport drivers, they're 2 of the sinners with red and black, but luckily when you're at the head of the field, you can't get confused with anybody when you're 3 seconds ahead of the field.
Well, yes and no. I will give them at least the kudos of the fact that A, they're in different cars, so it's easy to pick one from the other, but B, they also have the different colored wheels that would make it slightly easier to identify. Martin Crisp. Okay, so he's got blue windshield mirrors in his SimCity racing machine. What does his teammate have? Now, you tell me, how would you pick these 2 cars apart from one another if you couldn't read the number?
I would not be able to.
Yes, and so I have finally been able to convince the Apex Racing Team after about a year of relentlessly digging into them on broadcast about how it is impossible to differentiate 2 of their machines. They have finally added a slight little bit of color on like the wing mirrors, windshield, end plates on the rear wing. Little things to make it slightly easier because, Joey, as I'm sure you can attest, commentators are dumb, and we need all the help we can get.
Well, if I wanted to be mean, I could say that it's usually easy to tell because Sean Dickinson's usually the leading one, but that's not the case here.
Oh,
Martin Crisp has turned it around.
Fired.
They're only separated by 13 points. I can't be too harsh, but their admin is in the chat. SimCity Racing is in the chat, so we've got a Spitfire.
SimCity Racing, just clip that and make sure you know who. So when they get out of the car, Sean and Martin, when they come and talk to us, they know who in the booth has got their backs.
There goes my future SimCity Racing social media manager position.
Or your SimCity Racing t-shirt. I am wearing, by the way, just right now, this beautiful Pure Sims Esports t-shirt that they did send my way. So shout out to Pure Sims Esports, even though they aren't racing here today.
I could go for a Boris Ovando t-shirt, because that's just a yellow shirt.
See, but this is the thing. If you give commentators free stuff, which I am very much advocating for, by the way, we will just randomly talk about you.
Eric Newman says he's taking notes. I'm scared.
Nice. Speaking of giving, to the point of giving t-shirts, though, Joey, I've got one Arnage competition t-shirt already because they were very nice to me last year. They've got a brand new t-shirt this year. Apparently, I'm getting that as well. I mean, can you imagine how much I love talking about Arnage competition?
And I'm still waiting on my RaceSpot t-shirt. I still haven't gotten my uniform.
You got it. Unfortunately, we're not a big enough operation to send those out. You can go to the RaceSpot Armor store and pick yours up, and you can get a special discount as well for being a staff member.
Oh,
again,
special.
Send me a message and we'll get that figured out. If you're a viewer watching and you want a slight discount, I think it's 10%, then yes, again, message me and I will go and dig it out. If you want the exact link to go and find all our merch, including the Is Max in this split t-shirt, armor.gg/collections/RaceSpot. Nice and easy.
And also, as they say in Australia, another promo, all PRL series are still registering drivers for next season. Over the next 3 weeks before the season starts, you can go to precisionracingleague.com and sign up for every single series other than the GT3 Fix series. That one filled up already, but there's spots here in the Sprint series as Elliott White is looking for a spot on track. We finally got an attempt at an overtake again. Unfortunately, he's trying to do it the long way around, and just like last time, it's not going to work out. Elliott White rejoins the train. But as I was saying, there's a new series in the PRL next season. We had the MX-5 series for a couple seasons. That was replaced with the GR86 series this season. And now with the addition of the Renault Clio Cup car in the next update, we will have the Production Car Challenge series in the PRL with the MX-5, the GR86, and the Clio. For the first time in PRL history, it's a 3-class series. It's huge.
That does sound pretty chaotic. And I'm almost half tempted to go and run that. The problem is I do have broadcast duties, unfortunately, usually on Mondays. So that may...
I'll take them. I'll take them off your hands.
Well, unfortunately, unless you want to start producing as well. Yeah, no, exactly.
My PC would explode.
Yeah, no, and it is Lionheart, so I'm not going to complain about doing Lionheart broadcasts. I always love doing that. But what an interesting combination. I think that Clio is a really interesting addition as well. I think this is where a lot of people who are at the top level of iRacing kind of forget what cars we really need. It would be great to have another GT3 car. Yeah, whoop-de-doo. We've got enough of those at the end of the day. As much as I love talking about it, Joey, you've been with me on a special event. You know I love talking about what GT3 car is next. But we need cars.
Hope it's the Lexus.
I just hope it's the McLaren, because we're getting a new Evo version of that. But regardless, the point being, iRacing's member base has swelled so significantly that we need these slower cars where most people are going to end up driving on a regular basis at the end of the day. And after sacrificing about 400 iRating at Road America in a GR86 car last week on iRacing's official series, I can tell you the racing is fantastic. See if we can get Joey Tebbin back in a second, as he's having some slight technical issues, but continuing in this race. Now 25 minutes left to go. Gap between second and third between Modoff and Crisp has grown to about 3 and a bit odd seconds, but by no means pulling away leaps and bounds. Last time by, if anything, Crisp closed about a 10th and a half. Not that much, though, to really be able to catch up, at least at this point in time. It's Cortez that continues, Joey, to look increasingly feisty as he tries to find a way past Elliott White.
Yeah, just like the potent British mustard, Gonzalo Cortez cannot get Boris Ovando out of his nose, as Nick McLaughlin, as he has many times this season, has unfortunately found the wall, and that's going to be his season over in that Ferrari, I think, with a tow back to the pits. Poor old Nick McLaughlin.
Definitely not what he would have wanted, how rather he would have wanted the season to come to an end, but we've seen decidedly less chaos today, Joey, in this sprint series race than we did in that fixed series race earlier.
Well, if I remember correctly, all that action started to kick off about now, about 16 minutes into the race. But first, let's see what happened to Nick McLaughlin. Is he the kicker-offer? Well, actually, first and foremost, this is Nick Larson, who really kicked off the action, and I don't think he held the brakes there. A little bit of trouble for him. Here's what happened to McLaughlin. It was at turn 2, actually, and that is a very big one.
That is vicious, and right just off board, you'll see it's the slightest bit of the left side's on the grass, and it's he just catches, I think, part of the tire wall. Not sure exactly which part it was, but sucks him in, and yeah, that car is a toasted.
That's revenge. That's revenge, Nick McLaughlin, for stealing my podium a couple of seasons ago.
You won't forget this, will you?
I never will. I never will. I was racing in another league a couple of weeks ago with Dave Peterson, who is the only driver who I've ever gotten a penalty in the PRL for hitting, and he didn't forget. He didn't let me forget it. He said, "Oh, if we're coming into turn 5 at Road America, I'm going to watch my back." That is because I took him out at Barber, so it was my fault. But you never forget things.
I mean, I just assume things are usually your fault, unfortunately.
Yeah. I'd never driven the Radical before. Evidently, I needed more practice, because the second I got behind Dave, it was just like my sights were set on him, and I killed him again.
Target fixation, apparently.
Maybe.
Lights flashing from Boris Ovando. I don't think he's enjoying being checked up here. The problem is as we check in with the track map, with the pit delta being around 30 seconds, if Ovando pits now, he does have a slight pocket of clean air, but the worry will be if anyone else elects to follow him. we are at the point that hypothetically you could come down and get to pit lane, but traditionally you see drivers try and go as long as they can and get the car as light as possible and gain the most time by drying the car out, basically.
I wonder if he's still just desperate to get by Gonzalo Cortez on track. That's one of the trade-offs that's a struggle to make. If you think you can pass a driver on track, you want to do it, but sometimes you have to think, if I want to pass him, it might not be spectacular to do it in the pits, but that might be the most reliable way to do it.
Yeah, remember again, delta about 30 seconds from what we saw in the GT3 fixed race. Don't expect it to be too drastically different. Yes, this is a slightly longer race, but the cars do have their fuel restriction lifted slightly as Boris Ovando. I mean, that was a dive and a half that Gonzalo Cortez still said, no, thank you, I'm shutting the door on you, but my days, that could have been a lot worse.
Well, this is almost a home race for Boris Ovando because he hails from Texas, and Okayama is a sister city of San Jose, Texas, so do with that what you can. Here's his little dive into the hairpin, takes a peek, and obviously was nowhere near close enough as Gonzalo Cortez closes the door. These two aren't going to be sister cities anytime soon.
Blake Zeedy, by the way, back out on track, but back in trouble, it would seem, as we grab a look at him through turn one. Too much speed, around it goes, and Ferrari's going to have a slight bonk into the wall.
Poor old Blake Zeedy. He's got the championship in the bag right now. It's basically a tour around Okayama at this point. But that's the drive of a champion. You don't want to give up just because you have the championship in the bag. You still want to race every single lap of the season. And it is still, you know, in the grand scheme of the universe, when things like the Big Bang have happened that are impossible, Kwok Nin needs to finish third to win the championship. It's not going to happen, but Blake Zeedy wants to make sure every single T is dotted and every single I is crossed. I think I reversed those. He's trying to make sure there's no bad luck.
I mean, does Kwok have the ability to incentivize the rest of the drivers in front of him? Just say, guys, look, I need to finish third. Let me through. You can have your battles, but third, that's where I need to be. We'll find out.
The puppies are a very good bargaining tool.
Oh, the puppies. You saw the picture, right?
I did see the picture, but Karl Modov has passed his teammate Connor Wagner for the lead. As everybody else is going train mode, there's been a switch at Delta Sport, and it may have been triggered by a mistake from our race leader, Connor Wagner.
We'll find out here as we switch straight to the replay. Yeah, a bit wide in the Porsche, dragging some of the right sides maybe through the gravel, and the Audi knew that couldn't really afford to check up and lose more time, so slots his way on through. And now Modov in front of Wagner.
Now what does Connor Wagner do? Was he holding up Karl Modov? Is this Karl's chance to run off into the distance? And is this Connor Wagner's chance to go a little bit off strategy and minimize his losses and try and do something different and potentially come down this time? I'm not sure. I think there's some traffic right where he would come out with Kwok Nin and Brett Thurman, so Connor Wagner is in a big dilemma right now, as is every one of these drivers in this train. Gonzalo Cortez keeps getting attacked by Boris Ovando, but one of the trade-offs that we get from having the best PRL GT3 sprint field in history is all the drivers are very, very good, and all the drivers at the head of the field are evenly matched, which at a place like this, unfortunately, sometimes leads to a checkmate.
Jeff Carollo has had a potential issue that has allowed Kwok Nin to grab second in class, although again, remember, AMs score points based on overall positions rather than positions in class as of this season of the Precision Racing League. Mendonca, the best of the AMs, up in 18th, and he is finding himself about 7 seconds clear of Nin, so well and truly has some breathing room. Wagner's struggling a little bit with his Porsche at this point, it's fair to say, I think, Joey. Gap holds at about a second as they peel out of that final corner. Martin Crisp almost has the draft that will allow him basically to maybe bridge to Karl Modov by using Wagner as drafting help.
Wagner kicked up a little bit of gravel there out of the final corner, so he's pushing, he's extending things to try and bring this gap down, but I don't know if it's working. I don't know if it's working for Connor Wagner. He's thinking in the future. He knows there's 17 minutes left to go in this race. But a full second gap to your teammate after you've made your first mistake of the night, it's always hard to come back from things like that.
Jeff Corolla.
Here comes Corollo.
Yeah, but I don't think this is necessarily the start of the cycle. I think this is just a car that maybe had an issue and wants to come down to pit lane to get out of maybe a hot spot. You can see just how much the gap has grown between the two race leaders, but Chris not really that much closer in terms of being able to get into that hole in the air that Wagner will punch in the Porsche. Still looking good for Delta Sport at the front, you'd have to say.
Looking very, very comfortable, but Connor Wagner, he's under pressure. Martin Crisp is very, very quick, very, very consistent, and Elliott White, one of the tire wizards of the PRL, one of the most consistent drivers in the PRL. He's going to be a little bit of a challenge for Connor Wagner here in the near future. There's a few drivers who aren't here with us in the final round of the season who I do want to give a shout out to. Former Supreme Court Justice William Brennan himself. Unfortunately, couldn't make it tonight. He was in the chat, though, so I'm gonna give him a shout-out. I think he'll be back next season. And Downtown Gary Brown, who had some strong performances in the AM class this season, had some strong performances in the Fixed Series the previous season. He'll be going back to the Fixed Series, and he will definitely be one of the championship contenders in that series next season. So look for Downtown Gary Brown to potentially transform into Uptown Gary Brown, as Raymond Yip, I think, is the first legit pitter.
Yep, no. Remember, you can take fuel and tires at the same time, but based on the amount of fuel that drivers have been putting in the cars, not sure which tire you'd necessarily be changing. 8.7 seconds stationary there. Wagner slipped even further back from your leader. Now he's almost out of drafting range, but Crisp has had a bad lap or so and now finds himself even further behind Conor Wagner, and so I think increasingly with Cortez looking increasingly feisty, Ovando, we've seen the lunges from him on occasion as well. Surely as we enter a pit stop window, some drivers are going to think, I want to get a move on. I want to get a move on now.
Look who's joining the train. He's been doing his own thing for the first 25 minutes of this race, but he is making this a 5-car train, and that's the second SimCity Racing driver, the second SimCity Racing Lamborghini of Sean Dickinson, who is making this the SimCity bread of the SimCity sandwich. He's caught the back of this train, and he can see his championship rival Elliott White ahead. He knows that with every minute that passes, the championship becomes more and more unlikely as Elliott White just runs consistent laps. But when you can see your championship rival, that's obviously a good thing to know when Sean Dickinson comes in just as he joins the train.
Yep, think it's a good time to maybe come in as well. Sees a gap in the field behind where he can slot in and recognizes that he's been able to close. Is that because the pack is slowing itself on down? Potentially he'll have a line as well over to Martin Crisp to kind of understand how the balance of that Lamborghini is relative to his own. 14 on a bit odd minutes still left to go, and I think in about 4 minutes time we'll have had most of the field down through pit lane.
Kwok Nin is in, trying to go off strategy in his AM win battle at the very least, trying to rob David Mendonca of his first win in AM. Martin Crisp has turned up the wick a little bit on Elliott White. I think it was more on Elliott. I think Elliott made a mistake and Crisp just had a reasonably normal lap, but suddenly things start to get a little bit closer between Crisp and Wagner and get a little bit more separated between Crisp and White.
At least for the time being. I do wonder, again, we saw the mistake out of Terrafino, remember, in his pit stop entry where he just slid through his box. Will we see any of that from these drivers as well? But using the limiter, of course, to keep their speed controls. It's all going to be about really just trying to make sure that you're not trying to save too much time on pit lane, that you cost yourself even more.
And just in the background, there's just another close fight. We've got a lot of these little tandems here. Diego Morales and Miguel Angel Fonseca have met each other in the last couple of spots in the top 10. This is another driver, Miguel Angel Fonseca, who has absolutely thrived in the pro class. He has been so much better this season than he ever was in the AM class, and it's remarkable. We always see drivers improve in the PRL season to season, but this has been one of the biggest jumps I've seen. He's gone from fighting for those last couple of spots in the top 10 as an AM to fighting for poles, fighting for top 5s as an AM now. It has been an incredible season for Miguel Fonseca. Slightly inconsistent, so he doesn't have the championship position he wants, but next season, if he can get even better, he's going to be in pro championship in conversation.
Yeah, potentially. I definitely think this is why we like this AM to pro step up, right? It gives you the opportunity to be fighting it out with the pros out on track, but still have your own championship while you gain confidence, you gain speed, and you gain ability, I think most of all. And maybe you also find the GT3 car that fits your balance the most. One thing that, of course, is significant is the fact that these cars do change somewhat frequently. We seem to have a yearly update at this point to the tires that basically throws everything out of whack, and so don't think anyone's expecting that in our next iRacing build, but potentially we will have some changes to just the balance of performance and stuff. See some cars down to the pit lane, though, as they work their way through this. Sean Dickinson has gone off the track, though, and his undercut has now had some compromise because he's had about a 5-second time loss.
Oh, dear. But Elliott White stays out. Cortez stays out. Here's what happened to Sean Dickinson. Loop-de-loop and a little bit of a hit of the wall for good measure at the hairpin. It's not helpful for him. I think he's going to fall out of the top 10 with that, as Karl Modhoff easily wins the race off a pit lane. Connor Wagner, very, very slow stop.
Yeah, but Modhoff right alongside with Mendonca as they roll out of pit lane. Mendonca still yet to roll onto the lane himself, and fortunately, the Audi able to slot himself in front as they work out of turn 2. But yeah, big gap back to Wagner, who will be concerned about his own margin to Martin Crisp behind.
Remember, Mendonca didn't fight that because he didn't want to fight for the position, or because he knew he was on an alternate strategy. AMs and pros are running for the same points. This decision was made because they wanted AM drivers to fight with the pros for positions, because it makes for exciting racing if people aren't just letting each other by all the time. But Mendonca isn't on an alternate strategy, so he had a great reason to let Karl Modhoff by there. Was still a little bit of a checkup, though, so if Elliott White has pulled some fuel magic, if he can have a great stop, it could be closer than we thought at the head of this field if Elliott White brings it in this time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're in for a chance here, especially for Elliott White to maybe jump in front, especially of Wagner and Crisp. He will come in this time through, no major drama, as he works himself onto the lane. Cortez hot on his heels as well. Could it be a double jump? Puctel goes one lap longer than them all, though.
I feel like Ryan Puctel has done that a lot. He always finds one extra lap of fuel somehow. He's always doing some little crazy strategy. Maybe that's why he won the F3 AM championship a couple of seasons ago. There goes Elliott White, 9 seconds in the box, and it is not going to be especially close. Modhoff blows by him, Wagner blows by him, but critically, he's jumped Martin Crisp. He's on the podium.
Yep, no, exactly what he would have wanted to see. Avando's alongside with Cortez as they sweep out of turn number 2, and now Cortez actually compromised, gives up that spot, so Avando jumping in front of the 09 through the cycle as well. So a couple of drivers really using the pit stop phase to make the moves happen at a track where it's difficult to get it done through the racing itself. Cortez, we've seen him be aggressive. He'll have to be aggressive to get past that bright yellow submarine.
Well, if there's anybody who has ever been aggressive in the PRL, I think Gonzalo Cortez is potentially at the top of that sheet. But under breaking into the hairpin, he's a little bit too far back for his own standards, but it's a mistake for Ovando that opens the door. And as soon as Ovando gets by, as soon as he ends the reign of terror, a little bit of argy-bargy, and Cortez gets doored off the road.
And now they've really dropped out of the draft of those in front, so we'll have to wait and see if they're able to latch back on. Lights flash from Cortez, but it takes 2 to tango, I think, at the end of the day.
It was a great little slot into that gap for Cortez. Again, an aggressive driver sees the opportunities and seizes the opportunities, but he tried to go around the outside of Ovando through the first 90-degree corner, and you can't really put much blame there on Cortez.
Yeah, okay, now that I've seen it once again, and we'll see it from up above, maybe Ovando does run a little bit wide out of there, does not really leave a car's width. At least on the tarmac, he does maybe on the gravel itself, and so leaning on one another, but I guess they make it through safely in the positions that they enter the corner in.
If they do that again, though, it might be a little bit less safe. I think Gonzalo Cortez definitely has a big yellow carrot in front of him that he's going to be chasing here, and if there's one more mistake from Ovando, Cortez is going to get even more aggressive than he already was. Ovando was deep into Atwood there. It's a slow exit for him. Cortez might have another shot here.
Yeah, and in front of him as well. See that Martin Crisp not really pressuring Elliott White, so the question will be, can White now find a way past Wagner, who's really starting to struggle? Ovando, Cortez don't switch around as they work their way through the hairpin, but that Porsche Whether it's tires, whether it's balance, I'm not sure. You could just see, not looking comfortable, winding off of the corners, and Elliott White in the mirrors is showing himself to put more mental fatigue onto the 51 of Wagner.
For basically switchbacks every single chance he gets through all of these hairpins, but unfortunately there is a big Porsche-shaped wall in front of him every time he tries to pull one of those switchbacks that he can't do anything with. We ride on board with Martin Crisp, who has the best seat in the house in this little fight. He wishes it was a little bit better. He wishes he was still ahead of both of these guys, but if Elliott White does go for a gap that doesn't exist, I think Martin Crisp will be one of those drivers who's going to be very opportune. He's going to be very, very happy to go for that open door. Elliott White just slots back in the train for the moment. He's going to have to wait for the best overtaking spot in the track in a couple of moments' time.
I think we're guaranteed for Modolf at this point, though, to grab his second victory of the season to sign off with some momentum. But 6 odd minutes still left to go. Not sure if this is going to be as close a call as to whether we're going to get 1 lap or 2 laps extra once the clock winds itself to an end. We'll get a better indication the next time Modolf comes his way across the line. Vando starting to close onto the back of Crisp once again. They are in drafting range, are those 2 Audis, 5th and 6th position. White still not really committed to making a move, and I think if it is going to come, it's going to come only because of a mistake out of that Porsche.
By the way, I don't think Karl Modolf will ever be comfortable leading a race and be, content that he's gonna have a win by the end of the day. Because of what happened at Long Beach, he got disconnected on the final lap. He had a dominant win in the bag, and those pesky little internet ghosts, they kicked him out from the lead. Boris Ovando got a win, but that's gonna be in Karl Modolf's mind forever. You can never forget that.
No, absolutely not. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier about the Tauscher, right? Esports Racing World Cup. Yeah. Well, sometimes commentators are evil and won't let drivers forget about things that they'd much rather we don't talk about.
Yeah, don't get me started, because tomorrow night is the PRL NASCAR Xfinity Series finale, and it's possible that for the first time in over 5 years, Bradley Holly might not win a race in a Wednesday night season. And every time I remind him of that, he's always like, no, I'm not thinking about the records, I don't care, but it's a pretty big record. It could end tomorrow night.
No, absolutely. I mean, we're on the same page. Poor Adam Blocker in some of the line-out competitions, and Phil Krause to some degree as well in the subsequent year. He's just like, how does it feel continuing to finish on the podium? It's just like, the question gets boring after a while, you know what I mean?
It definitely does. And by the way, Eric Newman has just, he's getting compliments about the SimCity racing cars. People are saying they look fantastic, and that's very true. But I have a proposal for next season. Whichever driver ends up on the top of the points, I guess it'll be Sean Dickinson, he should get that SimCity racing car. And Martin Crisp, what you should do is you should switch the highlighter yellow and the gray, do a little reverse, and that'll make it very much easier for us.
Yeah, whatever you want to do to make it easier. I mean, that's all we're asking here. We're commentators, we're simple, we're not very intelligent. So yeah, make our lives easy. I'm trying to think, the best team in terms of switching things up is probably Team Redline, just because it's easy for them. They have a red line down the middle of the car, and then the rest of the car can be totally different colors, so they've got so many different variations they can play with there. Who else is good? Apex have always been bad until we called them out enough that Mark Schranter, I think, got sick of our moans and so decided that he was going to fix it. BS Competition's another good one, Joey, because of course one half of the car always is basically identical to the left side, but the right side can be quite different. So there are some teams that realize that we need assistance.
Apparently Martin Crisp is actually the driver who makes the paints for SimCity Racing, so
we have to direct our complaints to him, is what you're saying.
Oh, big trouble for SRT Esports. That is Matt Hilton. He's had a little bit of trouble at turn 2 in the dying minutes. He has done the thing that everybody in the fixed race did. Just got a little bit out of shape, and he's going to join his old buddies Blake Ziti and Nick McLaughlin in the damaged Ferrari club. Yeah,
there are quite a few cars in that club here today. Nick McLaughlin saying, I'm particularly fond of Boris Avando's paint. Yes,
me too.
That is a masterpiece. A masterpiece I could have also painted as well, which is the best part about it. There are some, like SimCity Racings in particular, that I just look at, Joey, and it's just like, I don't know how you designed that, and there are some paint templates that are worse than others, right? I just shudder to think how some of those paint designers who had to do the Porsche and Audi LMP1 cars, you know, how they survived that shenanigans.
It's like what David Byrne said. He said that the better a singer is, the less you can relate to them. So the better a paint scheme is, the less I can relate to it. That's why I'm all here for Boris Ovando. He went in Photoshop, he took the color picker tool, he said yellow, and he was done.
I mean, you could have just had an iRacing default paint for that, to be fair.
That is also true.
I mean, you had to go to that extra step. You're like...
It makes you feel professional.
I know. Jeff Carollo, by the way. Carollo going around in that final sector. Still running 24th overall, 4th in class. Not really a concern because, of course, the back of the field is somewhat separated. Getting ready, though, to come to the white flag next time by.
It's about time to end this season, and this is what it looks like. First, here's what happened to Jeff Carollo in the Frankenstein entry here into the first hairpin. Loop-de-loop. Welcome to the club, Jeff. Welcome to the club. We'll see him back next season. I think in the Fix series. I think he may be going back down there. I'll have to recheck the data there. But here we go. Karl Modoff out of the final corner. He's going to take the white flag here with a 3.6 second gap over his teammates. I hope his Ethernet cord is plugged in. I hope nobody else is using his home Wi-Fi, because he's got one more victory lap at Okayama to go.
Behind him, will we maybe see Martin Crisp have to go very defensive to try and hold on to his 4th position, because his Lamborghini is being swarmed by 2 Audis, one yellow, one red, but both feisty and looking for a way forward. You can see the margin in front. Elliott White not necessarily close enough on Wagner to have a look. It's behind where the action is.
Ketchup versus mustard for the final time. Gonzalo Cortez looking everywhere. It's a huge dive into Atwood. And is it too huge? Not quite. He gets it slowed down. He gives a little bit of payback with a door rub to Boris Ovando. And Gonzalo Cortez finds a second break in that Audi to absolutely destroy Boris Ovando into Atwood. Ovando's going to try and fight back around the outside. They're banging doors under braking. Later on the brakes is Ovando, but the inside goes to Cortez, and he's got it done.
I don't think Cortez recognized just how alongside Ovando was, and so as Cortez wanted to sweep to the left to set up for the braking zone, he found Ovando there, and they almost turned each other around. Major drama. That send from Cortez meant there was no chance for them to close up on Crisp. He'll hold on to 4th. He gets 5, 2 more corners.
How about a quarter century for Karl Modoff? 25 wins in GT3 competition in the PRL on his return season. 5th winningest driver all time, and Karl Modoff finally gets it done to end the season once more. His teammate Connor Wagner comes home just short after getting the pole. Porsche did not pay his favor over the course of the race. Your champion, by the way, is Elliott White. He comes home 3rd, but I don't think he cares too much about a 3rd place. He is going to be ecstatic, as he has just won the GT3 Sprint Series Championship in Pro, 2 wins on the docket, and he gets to fight for another championship tomorrow night as well. A little bit further back, a slight reversal of fortunes for Blake Ziti. He comes home 5 laps down. He comes home 26th, last in AM. Who cares? Big Ziti is a champion.
I mean, what does he graduate to now? He was Baked Ziti. What's the next step?
Lasagna?
Yeah, that's the question.
He's a real G, and he might move in silence up to the pro category.
It's going to be an interesting one as well. We saw Fonseca have a really good run, making his step up. He had a good battle, did Fonseca with Ziti when they were in the AM class. Can Ziti make that next step up? I guess we'll have to hopefully find out in Season 2 of 2023.
I don't know if Blake Ziti is out of fuel or if he's just having a little bit of time in the sun coming to the line here, but here he comes for the Long Island Racing Team. Blake Ziti, another one of those drivers who's just improved so much since his first season in the GT3 Fix Series. He has become a championship winner in the PRL. Also, SimCity Racing come home with the team's championship as well. They showed up their rivals, Delta Sport, even as they got a 1-2 at Okayama. Karl Modoff wins once again over Connor Wagner. Elliott White, your champion, finishes 3rd. Martin Crisp falls off the podium in 4th. Gonzalo Cortez beats Boris Ovando, both literally and figuratively, to 5th place. And Raymond Yip, his season of consistency ends in 7th. Diego Morales was lonely at the end of the race at the head of the train in 8th. Ryan Pucktel finishes 9th, and Miguel Angel Fonseca closes his first pro season with a top 10. Sean Dickinson had a mistake on his outlap, falls out of the top 10, could not do what he needed to do to fight for the championship, but with Elliott White in 3rd, it was a foregone conclusion anyway. Thomas Dunn, J.R. Williams, Nathan Bartley, Mr. Ted Lowendick, Nick Larson, Noah Anderson bring us down to 17th, and David Mendonca, under the radar, wins his first race in the PRL in the AM class, ahead of Andres Espinoza and Chase Brown. Josh Spears in the middle of this AM sandwich. Brett Thurman, Kwok Nin, and Jeff Carollo round out the lead lappers. Matt Hilton, Blake Zedi, and Nick McLaughlin went to the damaged Ferrari club. Ethan Osowski, the Bone Man, finished 26 laps down, and David Morse never got off the grid in the first place. But we've got, first and foremost, our race winner, Carl Modoff, is not actually here yet, but whilst we wait for him, we do have our champion here, Elliott White, 3rd place on the road, but a championship at the end of it all. How does that feel?
Oh, okay. Feels great. I mean, I haven't been able to put a whole season together in the PRL yet, so to be able to do it is a pretty nice feeling, I gotta say.
So are you back for another championship defense in this series next season? We know you're going to be defending, or you're going to be fighting for the PRL NASCAR Xfinity Series championship tomorrow night, but on the GT3 side, is it another chance at a championship next season?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's going to be tough to not want to run it back with the Audi. I mean, we'll see. I was thinking about trying something different, but I mean, coming off of a championship, it's tough to want to switch. So we'll see, but definitely going to be back for sure.
And it is, as I said, the first championship of the week. You come back tomorrow night to fight for another championship. How are you feeling going into the Xfinity finale?
Yeah, I mean, that one I'm a little more stressed about. Abner is obviously very good, and you know, we have only 1 point between us, so that'll be tough. I think it'll be almost a must-win race. So yeah, back-to-back nights of championship stress is tough.
I imagine it'll be far less tough once it's all over, but congrats on your first championship of the week, Elliott White, and we will see you in about 24 hours' time.
I'll see you guys tomorrow. Appreciate the broadcast.
Your GT3 Sprint Pro champion, Elliott White, wins his first PRL championship. Next up, it's our other champion in the GT3 Sprint Series. It's Mr. Blake Zedi. Not the best day at Okayama today, I think we can both agree, but who cares? You're a champion for the first time.
Yeah, not a really good race, obviously. I think I got some necro with J.R. Williams at the beginning there. Sent me into the wall, but yeah, I'm happy for the championship. A little bummed on the race, though.
So how do you feel about the season as a whole? Multiple wins, just absolutely dominant coming into this final race in the AM class. What are your main takeaways from the season?
I'm definitely going to take some positives out of it. I know I improved a whole lot from the beginning of the season, so yeah, I'm just going to try to keep on building off of that and do the best I can to compete with these guys next season.
And what does next season hold? Do you think you're going to get promoted up to the pro class? Do you think you're going to be in the AM class? What do you think is going to happen?
I'm not sure. I guess it's going to be up to the admins. I kind of like to stay down at the AM just to grow a little bit more and, you know, fix those little mistakes that I had tonight, stuff like that. And but if I get promoted to pro, it'll be awesome. I think if I get up there with these guys, I'll be able to learn the pace and compete.
Well, congrats on the AM Championship, Blake. We'll see you in about 3 weeks' time.
All right, great. Thanks, guys.
Blake Zedi, your AM champion, and we have two more champions to talk to because we've got both of our SimCity racing drivers here to represent the team's champions. It's Martin Crisp and Sean Dickinson. Martin, team's championship for SimCity Racing. As the livery designer, I'm sure you are ecstatic.
Yes, and I'm so happy that, you know, all the work that we put in this year, and we really did focus on the championship, and we took race strategies to focus on that. And you know, Sean, I think, still is second in the championship, so congrats to him, and congrats to Elliott for a well-deserved win. He did awesome.
Yeah, Martin's exactly right. Second in the championship, Sean. You had, I think, two of the most dominant races of the season at Silverstone and Manicourt. It may be second in the championship, but are you still pretty happy with the results of the season?
Yeah, definitely pretty happy. We did great working on the setups the whole season, bringing it home. I'm glad I was able to help out Martin and keep Yip behind so that he was able to take home that 3rd place overall. So real happy that we were able to bring home the team championship and 2 podiums for SimCity.
Well, congrats to both of you guys on the team's championship. And Martin, I'm imploring you, we need to change those paint schemes up next season. We need more help differentiating you guys.
Oh, you mean one unique per car? Okay, I can work on that. I can do that. Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
I've just done business here. I've just done business with SimCity Racing. Congrats on the team's championship, guys. We'll see you next season.
Thanks for all the work you guys do, man. You guys make it fun. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Always a pleasure. Sean Dickinson and Martin Crisp, SimCity Racing, your PRL GT3 Sprint Series teams champions. And that's about it. It's a bittersweet feeling because we're all done here in the GT3 series for this season. But don't fret, don't be scared, because in 3 weeks' time, we're back once again for more GT3 action in the PRL next season. Everybody, all the names you know and love, they're going to be back to fight for the championship. Names like Abner Acosta will be rejoining the GT3 fray, and a few others. Dave Menino, Caven Norris, Adam Brockway. The list keeps on coming. But that is about it for our coverage of PRL GT3 this season. This isn't the only night of PRL action on RaceSpotTV, though. This is the week of championship finales, as tomorrow night we crown the NASCAR Xfinity and Truck champions. On Thursday night we crown the IRO4 and F3 champions. On Sunday we crown the PRL NASCAR Cup Series champion. And last but not least, on Monday we crown the PRL GR86 and GT4 Series champions. We hope you'll join us for any and all of those. But for now, I've been Joey Tebben. Arjuna Kankapati has been Arjuna Kankapati. And until we see you next time, so long.